Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all on this Sunday night, Easter Sunday night edition of the DueDissidence podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
I'm not tired. I'm not burnt out. I'm just putting on my Jesus look for Easter. I'm looking deliberately like Jesus Christ. This is more the Good Friday Jesus Christ than the Easter Sunday Jesus Christ, since I look a little bit like a wreck. But I do apologize. This is my wife Amanda's last day off before moving day. So this was the big one. This was the big one where I was really scrambling all day. So I apologize if I'm looking a little more disheveled than usual. Although I suppose the good thing about having a disheveled look as kind of your brand means it doesn't look especially bad tonight. But Russell looks especially good tonight. That's why I thought I should mention it, because Russell's all groomed. He's got his hair cut, his hair done, perfectly clean shaven. Russell's looking very well. So I thought I should at least explain myself for why I'm underpresented.
Well, I wanted to get dressed up for my annual apology.
Oh, is that right?
On behalf of our people, we want to apologize for killing your God.
Yes. I told this story recently. I suppose Easter Sunday is the best day to tell this story. One of my best friends in the world, Justin Van Voris, we were in high school together. We went to high school together. That's how we met. Before we were really friends, he would sit at our lunch table because he got kind of unlucky. He had to eat lunch with the older kids because he's a year younger than me. So he didn't have many friends in the lunchroom, and so he would just sit at our table. But one day, because Justin is half Jewish, as am I, one day one of our Roman Catholic friends at the table had just seen The Passion of the Christ. It was right around Easter Sunday, and he starts giving Justin a hard time. He says, "How could your people do such a horrible thing to Jesus Christ? How could you do such a terrible thing? I saw that movie from beginning to end. It was just horrible. How could you do this to that man?" And
Gambling debts.
What's that?
Gambling debts.
Well, Justin came back, his answer, and Russell knows this. I told this joke recently. He says, "It seemed like a good idea at the time."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, really funny comeback. It's a very Jewish comeback, too. That's what makes that work so well. It's like, it's such a Jewy thing to say. It seemed like a good idea at the time. What did we know?
Let's go Nosh.
Yeah. Right. What are you going to do? You win some, you lose some. Hindsight's 2020. Knowing what we know, of course, it was a mistake. But hey, at the time, what can I say? Seemed like a good idea. Well, we thank you guys all for being with us tonight. A lot of people were streaming. I know Sabby was just on the air earlier. She had a huge crowd in there for her stream on this Easter Sunday, so congrats to her. Shout out to her. Shout out to our friends over at Revolutionary Blackout Network. We should plug this right now. We will be appearing on RBN tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're very, very excited about that. It's been a long time coming, so we want to thank Nick and CJ and all of them for the invite. We're very much looking forward to that. So tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we will be appearing on the Revolutionary Blackout Network. We're very, very much looking forward to that. Steve, thanks for the $5. You both need Jesus beards. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not a Jesus beard yet, but look at how recently I was clean shaven, right? You could check the record. I remember it was like
Yeah,
a few
you were
weeks ago.
pretty- you
Everybody
looked
was
like a baby.
Oh, baby face Keaton's here. I
Yeah,
said, don't
yeah.
worry, the beard will be back. My facial hair grows in really, really fast. Really fast. So thank you, Steve, for the $5. We appreciate that.
You're a swarthy Jew.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm surprised at how many people were streaming on Easter. We were thinking, like, should we stream on Easter? I don't know. Is anybody going to show up for Easter? But turns out we got a pretty decent crowd in here. Please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. Very important that you do that.
All right. People are psyched about the RBN. You know what's funny about that? We're going to talk a little bit about a friend of show, Marianne Williamson, later. But, I'm going to have to stop taking pokes at her because I keep manifesting things. Because during the darkest days of the pandemic, when we were doing the show for 34 people, and I know because somebody really nursed a grudge about one of the episodes and brought it up about 6 months ago. So I went back to watch it to see what she was so mad about. The episode that we did on the Fred Hampton movie.
That's right. Yeah, man, that was
the
way
Black
back.
Messiah. Yeah, we had 34 people watched that. So, that was the most interesting part of going back to watch it, other than the fact that we literally looked like we were living through an apocalypse. My head is shaved. Your beard was out like this. Like, we look like we're in bunkers surviving an apocalypse, which we pretty much were. The show that I name dropped at that time saying I most wanted to go on was the former Fred Hampton leftist, now Revolutionary Blackout Network. I said at that time, that's the show I most wanted to go on.
Yeah, so we're very, very excited about that. And obviously they had to change the name from Fred Hampton Leftist, but it is very much in the tradition of the Fred Hampton left for them to invite a couple of crazy shit-talking white boys onto a show with them. And so we are very excited. That should be a lot of fun. That's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So that's our plug, but we have two plugs actually that we want to make at the beginning of the show before we do anything that are, of course, more important than us. The first one, our friend Misty Winston is organizing a Julian Assange protest this Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. in Washington, D.C., outside the Department of Justice at 10th and Pennsylvania Avenue. She's enlisted a few notable speakers there. Max Blumenthal will be there speaking. So will Garland Nixon and Anya Parampil from the Gray Zone. So that should be a really great event. We love the work that Misty does. She's coming all the way from Ohio to be there on that day, and it was put together a little bit last minute for reasons that were necessary. But she's been really plugging the hell out of it. We had her on the show to talk about it, and so if you are in the DC area or if you can get there, Tuesday marks the 4-year anniversary of the arrest of Julian Assange, who's now being tortured to death. That is not an exaggeration, in Belmarsh Prison. And so if you can get there on Tuesday from 4 to 6, I think you will find it much worth your while to be there. So that's the first event we definitely want to plug. The second event we definitely want to plug is a press release from our friends at United for East Palestine. They put out a press release. They are having a Common Sense Summit April 15th, Saturday at 5 p.m. I'll just read this briefly. 1,000 train derailments take place in the U.S. per year. Toxic chemicals are spilling into the water, soil, and land at a rate that is truly absurd. There has been zero effective discussion or strategy to address these catastrophes. The EPA now runs cover for industrial polluters, the exact opposite function it was originally created for. The U.S. government is no longer protecting the basic necessities of life. United for East Palestine and River Valley Organizing invite you to an online summit for all individuals and groups interested in advancing the common interests of clean air, clean water, and clean soil. You can email alex@united4.org. I hope, perhaps that was a typo, actually, that email. I'll have to check with him. But that's if you want to attend or speak. They're looking for speakers. So if you are an environmentally minded person, or if you know anybody who you think might be a good fit to speak there, please reach out to them. There's an email here. You can also follow them on Facebook. They have a big Facebook group, United for East Palestine there on Twitter as well. So make sure you get involved with that if you can. We will be on the air once between now and then, but I wanted to plug this because we have an interview show coming up on Thursday, a very, very special one that we are really, really stoked for. Whether we should be stoked for it or not is, a different question. We'll see. But we are very, very excited for it.
I think so.
I'm joking.
I'm
joking.
So.
I'm just saying it's a show that is going to catch some eyes. That's why I say that. I'm saying for us, it'll be a great interview. I'm saying whether people will like it or not.
Look, we'll get people to super chat for the private security you're going to need after that one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, we will get to that.
We'll raise a fund for private security.
We are thankfully, I'll be up further into the woods by then than I am now. Not by the day of the interview, but by the time anybody would catch up to me, right? But yeah.
So you're not living in Albany. You're kind of living outside of Albany.
No, we're living, well, I'm not going to give the exact town that we're moving to for reasons you just described. But we are going to be in the capital region. A region. I'll give you guys a region. A hint. How's that? A hint. We're going to the capital region. All right, so let's take care of this super chat here. Where did I put it? I lost it. Here it is. Excuse me. Patrick, thank you, Patrick. Thanks for using your easy to pronounce and read American version of your name this evening. I know you kind of switch back and forth between the two, if I recall, but thank you for the $10 there. Greetings from Ireland again. Loved Russell's bid at the Trump protest, just summed up the hypocrisy. Hope we can see more on-the-spot reporting as the channel gets bigger. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Patrick. I'm sure Russell echoes that sentiment. I got an interesting piece of data emailed to me. It was by some podcast analytics firm. They actually said that this podcast was actually in the top 100 news and politics podcasts in Ireland. I think I told you that, Russell. Cracked the top 100.
No, you didn't tell me that.
We were ranked
59.
Ranked 59. Now, you would think, all right, part of you thinks that's bullshit, but then again, why would it seems like a pretty random statistic.
Well, they probably know I do an Irish mob tour. That might be it.
We have like 4 or 5 patrons who are in Irish. It is true. We have like 4 or 5 Patreon supporters who are in Ireland. I hear a lot from people who live in Ireland, so who knows how that works. I don't know what kind of algorithm they got running over there, but we like it.
They like to laugh at my poor attempts at an Irish accent.
Maybe
on the occasions that I try that.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's good, but you know how that goes. You think you're doing a good accent.
Irish is a hard
one. And then you
one.
do it for somebody from there, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're hurting my ears."
Irish is a really tough accent to nail if you're not Irish, because it's all. The way I think of Irish is you got to envision the sound right in front of your mouth, not in your mouth, but right out here. Right out here. It's like a British accent, but only you're juggling the air right in front of your lips. That's how I think. I read a whole book on accents because I used to be into acting a lot. And so I read a whole book on the mechanics of accents, and they say the Irish accent is one of the harder ones, as I probably just proved by watching it there.
I'm going to throw this in for our Irish watchers. They'll appreciate this. So I always wanted to produce Waiting for Godot. And generally in America, when they produce Waiting for Godot, they produce it with Americans and they do it in an American accent. And then I used to drive a horse and carriage, and you had all of these native-born Irish. So I would be hanging out, leaning against a wall on Central Park South with a bunch of dour, sarcastic Irishmen, which was very much like the circumstances of Waiting for Godot. And I realized from listening to their language and their humor that unless the person's Irish or very, very familiar with the attack that Irish have on language, you're not doing Waiting for Godot. You think you're doing Waiting for Godot. You're not doing Waiting for Godot. It's written to be done in that Irish lilt. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. You think it's what I was saying about Shakespeare the other night. You might think you're doing Shakespeare, you're not doing Shakespeare.
It's hard. That's
why I never produced it. I decided unless I can get it. I actually started talking about using the carriage drivers because they would have been perfect
for Waiting.
I was like thinking, oh yeah, because they already had that kind of weary, ironical sadness about
Well,
them.
that's why I think the Jewish sense of humor and the Irish sense of humor are kind of similar. They're not identical, right? They're distinct in certain ways, but they're similar. We both have that gallows humor about us because we're both persecuted white people, right? Exactly. So we both historically have used humor as a coping mechanism, and so we have that sort of dark sense of gallows humor. Because I notice a lot of my friends who I find the funniest are actually Irish, and I think that's why. All right, let's knock a couple of these super chats out before we get into this.
Yeah, I cut off a second one from him that you pulled up.
No, it's all right. I got it. Have a donut and a coffee on me. Would that even cover it? Yeah, it would cover one coffee and one donut. Although I don't know about Russell's neighborhood. Yeah. We told you that story about the craft service financing for our new documentary. Box of Joe and a dozen donuts in Harlem. 42 smackers for a dozen donuts and a box of coffee.
I just don't understand who in Harlem can afford these things, man. Like a bacon, egg, and cheese here now is $6. That was $3.50 before the pandemic.
This is what I'm telling you, man. They're talking about inflation starting to ease up. I don't see that. I spent $60 at the grocery store the other day. I got nothing. What I got? I got bananas, raspberries, strawberries, a couple of frozen things. Like, I didn't get any real food. I just went and got, like yogurt and stuff, like basically snacks for the kids. Yeah, $60, just unbelievable. Let's go, Brandon. All right, Mr. Fancy Pants, $1.99 signing up for security. Well, thank you. We'll have to get a fund going there.
Thank you.
That'll be a new Patreon tier. We're going to start redoing our Patreon tiers for real. The Keaton Weiss private security tier. That'll be one of them. Terrence Fuller, $6.99, newer subscriber, but have lurked for a while. Oh, well, we're glad you decided to finally pull the trigger and hit that subscribe button. Thank you, Terrence. Always amazing discussions. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much. We very much appreciate that. We thank you for subscribing. If you're here for the first time, folks, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button as well. All right, let's get started, shall we? Let's get into some headlines.
Let's Easter egg hunt those headlines out.
Let's find this one. This is related to the press release here. The CDC officers became sick while assessing contamination in East Palestine. This was covered by several different outlets, but this is an article from Common Dreams by Julia Conley. Pardon me. The reports add confirmation that the symptoms reported by East Palestine residents are real and are associated with environmental exposures from the derailment and chemical fire, said one scientist. Reports that several investigators with the U.S. CDC and Prevention became ill earlier this month when they visited East Palestine, Ohio, offered the latest evidence on Friday that the air and water in the town is less safe than state officials and rail company Norfolk Southern have claimed following the company's train derailment in February. As CNN originally reported, 7 physicians and officers from the CDC's Epidemic Intelligence Service traveled there in early March, a month after a train carrying toxic chemicals, including vinyl chloride, derailed there. Symptoms include headaches, sore throats, coughing, and nausea while they were conducting their door-to-door assessment of public health risks. Imagine somebody from the CDC shows up, knocks on your door to ask you some questions, and they just barf all over the... That's an encouraging sign.
Well, there's very mask of the Red Death, like the elites tried to hide from the illness of the peasants.
Yeah, right.
Only to be stricken down themselves.
Yeah, exactly. This is the last paragraph I'll read here. The symptoms were similar to those reported by many of the town's residents since the crash and are consistent with the physical effects of exposure to vinyl chloride when it is burned, as it was by officials who conducted a controlled release following the derailment to avoid an explosion. I wanted to cover this tonight for a couple of reasons. Number one, we had that press release that we definitely wanted to read. Number two, we hadn't covered this story in a while, which I criticized myself for because I said when this first happened, it is indie media's job to stay on this, and we slipped up and went off it for a few weeks. So I thought it was important to cover this again. But also, three, we are now outside the 2-month period since this happened. And now you have the CDC officials getting sick themselves. At this point, you cannot any longer call this any sort of fringe theory or fear-mongering or conspiracy that this might not be safe. Now you're getting it straight from the source here, reported in mainstream outlets. And, you know, these people just are without help. You know, I mean, it's just extraordinary. I mean, you have people sleeping, you have families shacking up at their in-laws on a cot in a bedroom. Like, there's no compensation for any of these people. There's no, I mean, in Montana, I forget the town in Montana, there was an incident in their town, and the residents of that town have permanent Medicare for all now because that happened to them. Free health care for life. That should be on the table here. Absolutely. At the very least, a hotel voucher? I mean, it's just incredible. So it's important that everybody stay on this.
But hang on, you do know that they indicted Trump, right? So
that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that because now that's right. So now there are no problems in the world. We don't have to do anything, right?
Orange man bad.
That's why we haven't covered it in a few weeks because it just it slipped our mind. Now they indicted Trump.
Well, because we knew the indictment was coming and we knew that was going to clear all this up.
That's true.
You know, there's a Democrat in the White House and Donald Trump is being indicted. Everything's fixed.
Right. How can we have dirty air under those circumstances? How much cleaner can the air possibly be? Biden in the White House, Trump in jail, right? It's spring.
There's only one thing that would make this all complete.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Other than that, we're good.
Just a little, I didn't know you updated the soundboard for tonight. That's a pleasant surprise. I dig that.
I sure did.
Excellent. Well,
no, I actually saw one of the few shit libs who has not fled from my poisonous lands. Do one of those things they feel very proud of themselves and very clever when they make these formulations. GOP, why don't you pass gun laws? GOP response, what about Hunter Biden's laptop? GOP, what about abortion? GOP, what about Hunter Biden's laptop? Okay, well, you could say, what about Trump? Very easily. What about the people in East Palestine? What about Trump? Like, they do exactly the same thing, and it's incredible how blind they are to that, how just absolutely lacking in any self-awareness they are, that they are exactly what they're describing.
Yeah, we have a little treat prepared for you guys at the end of the show to sort of play us out on that front. But let's go to an international headline here. Protesters in France riot outside of BlackRock's offices. Let's play some delightful video from here. See, that's what you call a controlled release right there. That's the good kind of controlled release.
That's it.
So Jerome Schmidt, as that plays here, a spokesman for the French union SOD, said to CNN, in case there was any doubt as to whether the location of this rally was coincidental, because the BlackRock offices are on the third floor of this building. There's not a giant storefront out there that says BlackRock Group, right? He said, the meaning of this action is quite simple. We went to the headquarters of BlackRock to tell them the money of workers for our pensions, they are taking it. There you have it. Pretty simple, right. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. There you go. God bless them.
The French, when it comes to terrorizing the elites, they've always been very direct. I admire that about them.
Yes, indeed.
You know, I don't know how I feel about their Gaelic perversions, but their Gaelic revolutions, I fully support. If we were to do that in this country, we already know. If you go and you look at some of the things that the government was willing to do for the people in the 70s, they were terrified. They were terrified of the people coming and dragging them out of their homes, because they were. Right. They were. Not that I'm supporting this kind of action, but Jesus Christ, man, they grabbed Patty Hearst out of her house and turned her into a bank robber. The elites were very afraid of the people, in paraphrasing V for Vendetta terms a little bit. And so they were giving a lot to the people because they wanted to keep them from coming for them. You look at stuff like this, you think it can't happen here? It's gonna happen here. Look at this. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I'm living in Harlem. I can pay these prices. I'm lucky. I'm not in your position. I don't have a family. And actually, in my line of work, they increase the pay. So I'm probably coming out even. I'm not coming out ahead, but I'm probably coming out about the same with the pay increases. But yo, man, people here don't have that kind of money. They can't afford $6 on a bacon, egg, and cheese. Like, how far can that go before you start to get cascading business failures because people just can't afford to buy these things anymore? Like, I'm surprised it hasn't collapsed yet. It seems like one of those things that it's going to start, and once it starts, it's going to snowball very quickly. It feels like it's all teetering on a knife's edge right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've run out of credit. Like, I mean, credit card debt is at an all-time high now, right? So, like, people are stretched as far as they can go. What happens when they can't pay those off, right? What happens when those minimum payments are just too high, right? Then not only can't pay the banks, but they can't buy the shit anymore, right? Once that maxes out, if you don't have the cash, you can't do anything, right? And so we've been in a situation where people were in a bind in terms of cash flow for a very long time. They were able to skate on credit for a little while. It seems like that period has ended. And then, of course, there's a few months lag time between when that happens and when things start to tumble in the way that you suggested they might. So that could be on its way.
And we're also starting to finally see the stories. If you remember back when we had, 25 listeners during the pandemic, we kept talking about this, that ultimately all of these commercial mortgages that these real estate trusts have are predicated on being able to get a certain amount of money for the office space and the retail. They can't get that now. And as these notes come due, you're going to have cascading bankruptcies, and you're already starting to see it. There was a major default of I think it's called the Realty Company in LA. They own dozens of properties, and they just defaulted on everything because their loans came due. Right. And they looked at the rents and they were like, we can't do this. So they just walked away. That's gonna happen in a lot of major cities, particularly New York.
Right. Yep. No, absolutely. We agree. I mean, we've talked about that in the past, but I think, I think you're right. I mean, it is hard to imagine how it goes on much longer. We've been saying this for a long time. We've been saying this for a very long time. Pre-midterms, right? Because that economic anxiety peaked around then. Right. But at the same time that was peaking, and we're talking about what effect is going to have on the midterms, you drive by Applebee's at 6:30 on a Friday night, place is fucking packed, right? Maybe because they're putting it on the plastic, right? And maybe once you run out of plastic, and you have to start, you have to start paying in paper, different story, perhaps. We will see. Time will tell. All right, this is a fun segment. This is a funny one. We'll do some comedy this evening, some dark comedy. That's kind of our brand. Some gallows humor, some Irish and Jewish style gallows humor here. But friend of show, David Frum, put out a tweet a few days ago. This is a classic. I mean, this got a lot of attention for very good reason. It was short, it was stupid, it was Orwellian, and it was evil. Those are all adjectives that you can use, ironically, to actually perfectly describe the man himself. But he put up here, Trump Russia was real. The Twitter files were fake. 3.6 million views on that one. They got a lot of attention. Because, Frum is not a master of the Twitter machine. He's got a decent following, obviously, because he's high profile, but that's a lot for him. Trump Russia was real. The Twitter files were fake. Russell had a run-in with the kinds of people who would like this tweet and retweet this unironically down at the Trump arraignment rally, protest, whatever. That is people's brains on this kind of corporate media, this kind of propaganda, this kind of just blatant, provable dishonesty. And it also just shows you what we were talking about before when we covered Matt Taibbi versus Mehdi Hasan on MSNBC. No matter how absurd the narrative, once you build the narrative and hook people into the narrative, you can get away with saying things like this because stuff like this makes sense within a narrative. Right? Whether it's true or not, it tells a story. As long as it tells a story and people are interested in that story, whether they find it just dramatically interesting or whether they just like wish cast it into believing it's true when it's not, this stuff actually works on people. Trump Russia was real. Twitter files were fake. Pretty extraordinary.
And that is when you look at his career, when you look at his history, and not just him, all of these Iraq war psychopaths, they all just failed up. One really feels today when you look at our elites, like we are the peasants before the French Revolution, where our aristocracy has just completely lost touch with the public, and their every pronouncement is ridiculous, and they just don't realize that they sound ridiculous because they're so ensconced in their own little court of Louis the 14th world. They just don't realize how out of touch everything they say is, and they don't even perform their duties with some basic competence that might make the public ignore their other peccadillos.
Right.
So we have a quote from him.
Yeah, indeed.
This is how much David Frum can be relied on there. The Iraq fight itself is probably going to go very, very fast. The shooting should be over within just a very few days from when it starts. Now, why would somebody who says that even have a job commenting on politics? That should discredit you forever. You should live in infamy and disgrace for the rest of your life. You should be flipping burgers somewhere. You should not be allowed anywhere near punditry or levers of power or any place where you could break something.
Right.
And yet this guy, he's the chief editor at The Atlantic.
Yeah.
He's a regular contributor on MSNBC. That is how absurd our elites have become. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, America used to be squeaky clean. No nation has ever been squeaky clean. But our elites, even if you look at it, an arch criminal like Nixon was competent. He was competent. He was knowledgeable. You can't say about Nixon he wasn't qualified or that his decisions all made no sense. Right? He opened up China. He did certain things. He kind of got the ball rolling on detente with Russia. And people forget this now because I believe the media doesn't want to talk about it because they don't want to make people think about how right-wing the Democratic Party has become by comparing it to the arch right-wing politician of his day. He created the EPA.
Right, exactly.
Nixon flirted with UBI. Nixon proposed a healthcare proposal that was more generous than Obamacare.
Yeah,
Ted Kennedy fought it and killed it because he didn't feel it was generous enough. So now here we are.
Oh, in many, many key ways, he was to the left of the modern Democratic Party.
Oh, absolutely.
Many ways. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I just got to show you this here. This is a site called Quote Fancy where you can make inspirational quotes out of things. So if you guys are looking for a good Christmas idea for a DueDissidence fan.
That's just too funny.
Go to Quote
How did
Fancy.
this quote wind up on there?
Yeah, you can pull some of Russell and I's greatest hits and send it to a loved one for this holiday season. A Quote Fancy. Yeah.
That is just incredible. Yeah, our elites really sound like the French aristocracy when they talk. Oh, yes, Trump Russia, that was real. The Twitter files are fake.
Well, speaking of Trump Russia, I want to play this clip. This is from The Vault. Okay, this was a while back. I probably should have been more responsible and gotten you guys a real date on this, but this is from a while back. This was a Real Time with Bill Maher panel featuring David Frum and Anthony Scaramucci, who spent time as, I guess, a Trump advisor of some sort for like 2 weeks, right? And he had just been let go. And he's on the Bill Maher show. At this point, Scaramucci was still a Trump supporter, even though he had a personal sort of parting of the ways with Trump. But Fromm was still really bothered.
AKA Paulie Walnuts.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Fromm at this point was still really bothered by the Trump-Russia connection as he is now. That's what made me think of this. This is very short, but it's one of my favorite clips. If you enjoy seeing little warthogs like David Fromm get triggered and upset, Scaramucci does a good job upsetting him further, even though he doesn't address what the substance of what he says. You'll see he handles him in a pretty satisfying way here. So this is Real Time with Bill Maher. Probably, I forget, if I looked up when Scaramucci worked for Trump, I'd know, but this was probably 2017, 18, something like that.
Around there.
Favored him. I've spent more time in a Republican administration than you. As a Republican, does it not?
Woohoo! Look at that. See, look at how stupid the audience is. I've spent more time in a Republican administration than you. Woohoo! More time doing what?
Like, what do you clap? And these are libs.
That the Iraq War was a good idea? Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Which administration was he in?
Right.
There's not.
We just showed you the quote. The Iraq War is going to be over pretty quick. The fighting won't last long.
Well, that's it. There's no accountability because the organ of society that's supposed to hold them accountable is the media, and the media has been completely co-opted.
Right. Literally in this case, I mean, he is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, one of the most esteemed liberal publications out there. Yep. Right. All right, here we go.
More time in a Republican administration than you. As a Republican, does it not?
David's coming across pretty angry today.
I am angry. Of course, does it not stick in your craw that Vladimir Putin wanted to help your guy so much?
Oh, well, I didn't see. See, you brought up the WikiLeaks thing. The WikiLeaks guy said,
"Doesn't it bother you? Don't you ask the question? Why did my guy? Why did my guy win the Putin primary?
Why did my guy win the Putin primary? See, this is how petulant they get. Even when it becomes clear that there was no like collusion or conspiracy, it's doesn't it make you upset that Putin wanted him to win? I would have been like, no, not really. Why? Why would that
come back with? I'm more upset about the Israelis wanting them to win.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'd come back with.
if you want to hear crickets in the Bill Maher audience, say that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If I were Scaramucci, I said no. Why would it?
No. Okay, I didn't hear either one of those things.
Your level of anger and sanctimony is not coming across great.
No, but I think we can have
for me, it's not a show. It's not a performance.
No.
It's the country that is in danger, and you help to endanger it.
Look at the round of applause.
You're making a very big mistake.
No. We need to have this conversation.
Elitism. You're turning a deaf ear to what's actually really going on out there.
This is real.
You're going to play that card, or you're going to name drop Harvard, one or the other.
Look, guys.
Okay.
Look at how much they love this guy. They love this guy. Just a complete ignorance.
Well, and look at the look on his face. That was a classic French aristocrat look.
Yeah. There you
go. And Donna Brazil's in there siding with him. You know, of course, she, for reasons I still can't figure out, just literally napalmed her bridges with the Democratic Party by telling the truth. I still don't understand that. Did they offer her that much money for the book? Is that what it is?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
like I don't get, because she's such a hack. Like, she's never really been a person of principle. Why did she get a case of conscience all of a sudden?
Right. Yeah. No. Who knows? Who knows about her? She didn't get much speaking time in that clip. But what I love about that clip, that's been one of my favorites for a while, is that Scaramucci is too much of a, just a street smart, wise guy kind of dumbass to actually go toe to toe with him on substance. So he just decides to give man, you seem pretty angry tonight. This guy's angry over here. Look at this guy over here. He's all wound up over here. Hey, your level of sanctimony is not working very well. He could have said, if he had brains, he would have said, why don't you explain to the audience what you did with that time of yours in the Bush White House that they're so proud of right now, that they're clapping for you right now. Explain what you were doing.
Well, and that really is like the fucking morons that I was interviewing on the street.
Yes.
Like that.
Right.
How are you? Think for a second, you fucking dumbasses. You are applauding not only for the fact that he's saying he's been in a Republican administration, but this is the Bush administration. It is amazing the way they have thrown all that down the memory hole. They'll deny. No, Bush. Right. Bush was a normal Republican. That's not what you said at the time.
Of course.
Everything you say about Trump now was said about Bush at one time. That he was a threat to the nation, that they were running an unconstitutional criminal government, that he should be impeached. That's what they were saying. They were saying all of those things, right? That he was a danger to freedom of the press. All those things are being said about him. And now that's all it takes. Michelle, more than Ellen, it's the Michelle thing. You know, Michelle hugs him in a picture. That, okay. Well, I guess he's all right then.
Right. He's in the club now. I love him to death, she said. I love him to death.
And we had that idiot from the video chimed in on Twitter.
Yeah.
You're taking it out of context. I love him to death.
I love him to death. Exactly. What are you talking
How is
about?
that out of context?
No, it's just there is no, but this is why he can tweet shit like this, and it doesn't matter because it's all just a narrative. The truth does not matter. The truth does not matter. They have a story that they want to tell and that they want to be told, and that's it. There is no getting through there. There's a great Twitter thread by a guy named Peter Moss, I think his name is. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. A senior editor at The Intercept. He was a veteran of the Iraq War. He just put out a wonderful Twitter thread about his time there, complete with photos and everything, that I would have loved to have featured on the show, but we can't because it has really gruesome images. Like, you're not allowed to show like actual like dead bodies and shit on YouTube without them like age restricting the video, in which case it would put up a barrier to people watching it. But it was really wonderful. And you know, this is obviously, we just had the 20th anniversary of it, so I retweeted it. You could see it on our feed here. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how the horror of that has just been completely memory hole. I mean, just unbelievable, really unbelievable. And I would argue we don't play this card very often because we don't dabble in the excesses of woke rhetoric or woke language. Quite racist and quite chauvinistic, right? A lot of Western chauvinism there. Let it go. It was a long time ago when 1 million brown people were killed for no reason. Right. It was a long time ago. And he was against gay marriage. And he let an entire black city drown. All right. Right. I mean, and just none of that matters anymore. Incredible.
No, he's been completely rehabilitated. Look, when Fahrenheit 9/11 came out, and it came out ahead of the 2004 election, those theaters were packed with these same fucking libs out there.
I was there. I saw that movie in
screaming
theaters.
for Donald Trump to be indicted and refusing to attack George Bush. It's the same people who packed the theaters for Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we're going to do our Sunday Funny in just a moment, but let's plug our Patreon first and give a shout out to our Patreon supporters here. We want to welcome Sandy M. She's our new sign up since our last show. Thank you for signing up, Sandy. You are on the second scroll here. You can sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com and help keep the show going. Your support obviously helps us a great deal, and so thank you guys very much for doing that. We just shot our documentary with Jose Vega. We are in the process of editing that now. We hope to have that ready in the coming months, probably looking at late spring, early summer. That takes quite a bit of time. The more donations we get in terms of Super Chat, Substack, Patreon, the more time we can take away from our day jobs and devote to projects like this and projects like that documentary film. So, having said that, let's take a few super chats here from our friend Colin Radix Carter over at the Indie News Network. Hey, Colin, thank you for the $9.99. I spoke to Jenna and Alex from United for EP about emergency Medicare for all for East Palestine, like Libby, Montana. That's the name. I forgot the name of the town. That's it. Libby, Montana. And they said more people need to get sick and prove it's connected to the crash in order to get that permanent Medicare for all. America is literally hell. Yeah, well, that's what they were telling us when we had them on our show. That's what Alex said. It was a great point. He says, look, part of the reason there's been a sort of cover-up, part of the reason why all of these institutions have been saying, well, no, it's safe to go back after 24 hours, is because if you can't prove that there's any long-term damage or long-term risk of being there, then you can't justify a form of reparations
Right.
like permanent Medicare for all for the people. Right?
So you have to get cancer to get the cancer treatment.
Right, right, exactly. Proof of cancer required.
Well, that's what they did. That's what they did to the Vietnam vets when they came back from Agent Orange. That's what they did to the Iraq War vets who were sick from the burn pits.
Right.
And that's veterans. That's veterans. Right. Look, that alone, if you know that history, and I guess a lot of people don't, and I'm not in any way disparaging veterans, I'm talking about the government. I don't know why you would join the military, man. Look at their history of fucking over the people who serve again and again and again and again.
Well, that's why Donald Trump referred to them allegedly as suckers and whatever it was, suckers and something else, right. Losers and suckers, something like that. I mean, that's a very inhumane way of putting it, obviously. But look, it's a harsher way of saying what you said there, which is like, how could you, like, knowing how they actually feel about you and how they'll actually just forget about you the second you come home.
And we have example after example. When I went to, I was thinking for 5 minutes about being a tour manager, but I'm not temperamentally suited to it.
No, you're not.
No,
because I've been a tour manager for a while, and I can tell you would not last very long in that position. I can tell you.
That is not.
He drove me out of the business. This fucking guy.
Me?
I'm joking. No, but you were working under me as a tour manager.
I was.
And after a few weeks, I'm like,
no, that's not that. No, that's a company manager. That's not a tour manager. A tour manager goes out on the road with these people for a week, 2 weeks at a time.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
I'm not talking about a tour company manager.
Oh, okay.
No, I thought about it for a minute only because it appealed to me that you can live anywhere and they'll just give you the assignment and fly you there and then you just do it. So I was thinking about it for a minute, but I'm just not suited to it. But part of it was I had to train and show them I could give a tour of DC. So I went down to DC. So I went to Arlington. And that's how it all struck me at Arlington. When you look at all of that, what I consider propaganda, they have to glorify war and the war dead to make people willing to join their ranks, to make you willing to go get killed. They have to convince you there's a point to it, that there's something glorious and noble about it. And while there may be something glorious and noble about doing that, if you believe in your heart that it's for your nation or for your fellow person, although people who've actually been in combat say that all goes out the window. Really, you're fighting for the guy next to you or the woman next to you. That's what it comes down to when you're actually in that situation. But whatever the case may be, it's something I'll never experience. If they start calling up the middle-aged white dudes, we got bigger problems if I'm ever in that situation. But it really struck me how this whole solemn ceremonies and Veterans Days, on the one hand, if you want to celebrate it or honor it to honor the war dead, okay, I'm not saying don't do that. But the social function it serves is to make more war dead. That's what I came away from Arlington with. It's because if you didn't glorify it, how would you get anyone to do it?
Right. Of course. Absolutely. 100%. All right, let's do our Sunday Funny. It is Sunday, everybody, and so we promise original satirical content every Sunday. Here we are promoting a book, not by our presidential candidate, Extra Bulla. We're going to promote that closer to its release date. So, Bulla, if you're in the chat here, I'm sorry, I asked you to send me the graphic, but we'll get to yours next week. But I want to plug a book by Marianne Williamson coming out with a campaign book, right? Right off the back of that infamous story that we broke down detailing, abuse of staff and everything. She obviously has to rehabilitate, her image in a way. And so what better time to
especially with
put out a
RFK
memoir?
jumping in.
Yeah, with RFK jumping in, right. Now there's real pressure for her to sort of rehab her public image. And so she's out with a new book here, a memoir called Don't Fuck With Me, I'm Famous, and I Don't Need This Shit by Marianne Williamson, author of the famous bestseller, A Return to Love. Now, we have not gotten an advance copy of this book, but we do have
She didn't
a
like
preview.
that piece we did.
No, yeah, she didn't send us the actual copy, so we didn't get to actually read it to give you quotes from the book itself, but we did get a little sneak preview of the first several chapters, the intro through chapter 6. So
we have a contact at the publisher.
Yeah, exactly. We did get our hands on this. So the introduction, the sort of prologue, the foreword, if you will, is called The Healing Power of Power. I think that's interesting. That sort of sets the stage for what the book is going to be about, the healing power of power.
Well, that's what I like. I really like the way that rich people in California have modernized Eastern mysticism and joined it to capitalism that way.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yep. All right, Russell, you want to read this one here?
Chapter 1, Bad Boys and Good Dope. My life before and after politics. See, it's the after part that's interesting.
Yeah.
So she's kind of promising that she's going to have a Carter-esque post-presidency.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or perhaps post-candidacy. That's how I read that.
Yeah,
hedging her bets,
probably.
In case I lose.
In case she loses.
I'll
but
go
what are
back
the chances of that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Chapter 2. AIDS and Other Vibes, My Activist Roots. So that refers to, her days in the 80s and the 90s doing her, very noble work of counseling, sick people, both with HIV and cancer, obviously. So that gives a little bit of a background into her work there. Chapter 3, Russell.
Chapter 3, Dirty Breaks and Dirty Sanchez's, both full of shit. Now I hope that finally shuts down the conversation about the dirty break. Right. She's telling us right there. And also the conversations about getting a dirty Sanchez from Marianne, because apparently you're not getting either.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, those are two dubious promises there, shall we say. I think that's how we would describe both of those. Chapter 4, Fuck them if they can't duck a phone. Interesting. That's a very, very direct and defiant response to those accusations of workplace mistreatment.
Hey, you want somebody you want someone who can stand up to Putin. I want somebody who can throw a good phone.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If you can't throw a phone at a staffer, how are you going to stand up to Putin? I'm surprised Amy Klobuchar didn't use that line. That would have been good for her. But if she can't, Marianne will take advantage of that. Absolutely. Chapter 5, Russell.
Pegging Kyle.
Interesting personal story to throw into the middle of the book there,
It's and Crystal watched. I mean, from what I've seen of the chapter so far, it sounds like they had a wild night. And then apparently Marianne got into the big bear suit from The Shining because she bought it at a prop auction.
That was a good reference. I like that one. Chapter 6. This is the last of the preview chapters we have received. We did not get an entire chapter list here, but here we go. Chapter 6. Where is it? Oops, I'm sorry. Heart of the deal. Compassionate haggling with reparations advocates. There you go. How to get that number down. She opened at 1 trillion. Marcel Dixon, a very passionate and not knowledgeable advocate for reparations, said it has to be 70 trillion at a minimum. And so, she put in a chapter as to how to negotiate that number down while still maintaining support from that community.
Well,
so I thought that was interesting.
No, I heard she's upped it with a lifetime supply of paper towels. So
okay,
she's upping the ante. She's getting closer to 70 trillion.
Right. Yeah, indeed. All right. Marcus P., who is a patron supporter, just put in our private chat. I guess you were in the studio for a little while. Asks, why are you throwing RFK Jr. in the same pile as Marianne? Well, we weren't. We're just saying now that he's in the race, she feels a need to, put out a book to sort of separate herself from him. I didn't mean that as a diss on RFK Jr. Although I gotta say, we have some RFK fans in our audience, and that's understandable. That's your right. But what happened to no running as a Democrat? What happened? Did we forget about that? I don't understand. We're not interested. Not interested. If you're running as a Democrat, I'm not interested. That's it. Period.
Well,
what happened to that? Whoa, everybody, what went out the window for him?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you guys like Kennedy heads? All like, oh, he's a Kennedy. Fuck it.
Yeah, right. No. No exceptions.
We don't have that Kennedy Camelot nostalgia around these parts, my friend.
No, and we run a tight fucking ship here. Okay, we say no running inside the duopoly. That's what we mean. That's what we mean. I'm make an exception for anybody. That's it.
And unfortunately, I'm almost positive Keaton forgot to download my Sanders video.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you are correct about that.
Today, so I'll just describe.
Did that just occur to you?
No, it occurred to me like a half an hour ago.
Oh,
I was like, oh yeah, no, that shit's not in there. But this would have been the perfect time for it.
Actually. It would have. You're right.
So today happens to be 7 years to the day that I was working security at the Apollo for Bernie Sanders. And I dropped a couple of videos on Facebook. That's why Facebook reminded me about it. And Harry Belafonte is there, and Nina Turner is there. And in the clip, he's addressing Bill Clinton had just defended his crime bill. If anybody remembers that. At first, he got very defensive about it. And so he talked about what Hillary's super predator comments.
Here,
meant.
You know what, Russell? Let me see if I can stream it. I might be able to stream it right now. Should we try it?
Yeah, try it, because I think so many of us came out of this movement that let's think back to when we still believed in stuff.
It's Easter, right? It's a day of reflection.
It's a day of reflection. Let's reflect.
All right.
It definitely made me sigh a little bit when I watched it.
There you go.
I think we all know what that term meant.
He's talking about super predators.
In the context that it was said years ago, we know who they were talking about. That's exactly right. That's what it was. And I think that the president owes the American people an apology for trying to defend what is indefensible. But let me, if I may, say it was not just that. During that period, a piece of legislation called the so-called Welfare Reform Act was passed. You all remember that? And the premise, which was a right-wing Republican premise, was that the problem was that all of these poor people were really living high off the hog. They were all the quote-unquote welfare queens. Remember that? All these poor people just living so well on welfare. And that bill was passed, and the result of it was that extreme poverty for the poorest of the poor went up very significantly in our country. And what that politics is about, what that psychology is about, is to adopt the Republican belief that the way you get votes is beating up on the poorest and most vulnerable people in this country. That is a bad, bad way to win votes. To beat up on people who are helpless, who are barely making it economically, and to go after them to win votes and to cut benefits for children, for moms, is unacceptable. And we are going to put an end to that mentality. We're not going to be beating up on the poor. Now, if you notice, in much of today's political discussion, the word poverty is virtually not mentioned. You know that? It's not mentioned. We got 47 million people living in poverty. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. I'm going to put the issue of poverty back on the table. Continue to talk about it, but first point is I think President Clinton owes the American people an apology for defending the indefensible.
There you go.
So, I saw that and it brought me back. It brought me back, and I bet it brought a lot of you back too. And so much of where we are today is a result of that campaign, and also a result of the aftermath of that campaign. We've talked about it. The left, the post Bernie left fragmented in different directions. And we've definitely landed on the outside power side. Not at first, not as quickly as Jimmy Dore did. He was saying that as soon as Sanders decided not to run as an independent, Jimmy Dore got on that train. It took us a while longer. I campaigned for AOC and we were supportive of the squad. I know some people who joined the show later on have actually gone back and watched our older videos. I've seen people comment on how they saw our politics evolve over time from watching that. Right. But, looking at this, a lot of you, and I can see in the chat, a lot of you, have that same feeling like, yeah, remember that? Remember when Bernie would go up and give those speeches and we were all hopeful? We were like, yeah, because we'd never heard any American politician get that far who talked like that. We'd never heard it. We were so hopeful that was going to be a game changer. I was there with my wife at the time. There were other videos of us. There's a picture actually on my Facebook of us with Nina Turner. We took a picture with her at that event. And it's just, it is really sad now when you go back and you watch that, all of that hope, all of that energy, all of that optimism. It's a lot of what you used to hear from the boomers about the assassinations of the 60s, that same feeling of like, wow, we had such hope, the way they would talk about the RFK assassination, it's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, he didn't get assassinated physically, but in every way that really counted, he was assassinated.
Yeah.
In terms of it as a political project, the political project he represented was assassinated.
Yeah, whack.
And now here we are.
Here we are, indeed. All right, let's get into our three main segments of the night. First one, this actually got a lot of play. I mean, it shouldn't have been surprising to me, but I was surprised by exactly how much press and focus this has gotten in our spaces here. So Matt Taibbi and Elon Musk seem to have had a pretty severe falling out. All right. Now on Friday, this is a weird thing to say, but we're lucky we got to interview him when we did because it turns out it was right at the tail end of all that. It would have been a very, very different story. We would love to have him on again to talk about all this stuff that's happened since, just in the couple weeks since we had him on. Maybe it was something he said.
Well,
Maybe we ruined his career.
Well, no, wasn't it? Musk caught him driving a Prius.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
I think that's
I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Driving a Prius. Musk is very petty that way.
Yes, indeed. Does not like competition. So on Friday, Matt Taibbi tweeted the following. He said, "Of all things, I learned earlier today that Substack links were being blocked on this platform." So this is right after his throwdown on MSNBC. "When I asked why, I was told it's a dispute over the new Substack Notes platform. Since sharing links to my articles is a primary reason I come to this platform, I was alarmed and asked what was going on. I was given the option of posting articles on Twitter instead. I'm obviously staying at Substack and will be moving to Substack Notes next week." The implication there is that he is going to leave Twitter altogether, or at the very least, he will not be posting any of his work on Twitter, which is just really, we talked a little bit about this when we did our impromptu live stream covering his return to the MSNBC network.
This had just broke, yeah.
This had just broken, yeah. But it's really, really a horrible thing. I mean, it really is just a shame. And this is why we've said people didn't believe us when we said this at the time, because we said we'd rather Elon Musk run Twitter than Jack Dorsey run it. But we have always said Elon Musk is an asshole. We've always said he's an amoral person. And he is. He is. I mean, this is just an incredibly disloyal stab in the back to someone who put his career on the line and really sacrificed a lot to put these Twitter files out. Yes, he gained a big following. Yes, he probably gained some subscribers. Yes, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, he probably made a few bucks, although Taibbi says he had to spend a lot of money
put
out
it
of
back
pocket,
into researchers,
hiring researchers and things like that. But look at all of the contacts he lost. Now, I'm sure he would say, fuck him, he doesn't like him anymore, and good on him for that. But, as much as maybe in the eyes of like the Sam Cedar types, he was severing to the right, just as they say about Glenn Greenwald and Barry Weiss, all the people they don't like, oh, they're grifters, they're closet right-wingers. He was getting a little bit of that treatment pre-Twitter Files, but not like he got after. Once
Twitter,
he did the
Twitter files, that's it. He crossed the Rubicon.
That's it. He crossed the Rubicon. There's no going back. And so and that's, when you're in the press, obviously contacts are important. And he gave all that up to break this story, and you fucking stab him in the back over something as petty as Substack is launching an in-app feature, a notes feature, which once again, we use Substack as a main component of promoting our shit. I don't know what the fuck this Substack notes thing is. I never learned it. I probably will never learn how to. It's not a competitor to Twitter in the least. It's absurd that you would consider that competition and take action against Substack over it. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. And so Brett Weinstein tweeted out here because, he kind of was taking Elon at his word that he was going to be pro free speech here. He tweeted at him. Put the Matt Taibbi thing in quotes there and said, at Elon Musk, the thing where the left eats its own? We mustn't let that, we mustn't let that happen. Sorry, I got the punctuation there wrong. See, it's because I've been reading too much Matt Taibbi there. Too many typos, right? The thing where the left eats its own? We mustn't let that happen to the emerging Western values free speech coalition. Many of us who have backed your Twitter play and taken substantial heat for it are thrown by this move. The public square isn't a monopoly. Exactly. Well said. Elon responds to him with the following 3 points. 1, Substack links were never blocked. Matt's statement is false. 2, Substack was trying to download a massive portion of the Twitter database to bootstrap their Twitter clone, so their IP address is obviously untrusted. And number 3, turns out Matt is or was an employee of Substack. By the way, Matt Taibbi has taken the Twitter files out of his Twitter bio. He claims that his Twitter files reports have been deleted, although I think I saw the most recent one still pinned to his profile. And Elon Musk no longer follows him on Twitter. So like I said, seems to be a pretty severe falling out here. So in response to that, you had the co-founder and CEO of Substack, Chris Best, tweet out the following in response to Elon Musk. Number 1, Substack links have been obviously severely throttled on Twitter. Anyone using the product can see this. So so in response to Elon saying they're not blocked, he's saying they're shadow banned. I wouldn't know because we've never had a viral Substack article, but I have noticed when we have posted when we have posted Substack articles on Twitter, they have not gotten much reach at all. There has been a noticeable, like you would think, like even when we post a really juicy clickbaity article, like one of the, like when Roe v. Wade was overturned and I wrote a diatribe against like the Hillary people for blaming us for it. I mean, that's designed to do well on Twitter. Yeah. Not much. I mean, it did better than the other stuff we posted, but I have noticed that, and I'm sure, high profile posters like Matt Taibbi would know that. 2, he says, we have used the Twitter API for years to help writers. We believe we're in compliance with the terms, but if they have any specific concerns, we would love to know about them. We'd be happy to address any issues. Now, I'm not a programmer. I don't know what any of this means, but the idea, back to what Brett Weinstein said here, which is that the public square isn't a monopoly. Like if you're doing this in furtherance of speech, you can't be petty about Substack, using features and stuff to boost their articles. I mean, I don't even know what the fuck this means. Like I said, I'm not a computer programmer. I don't know what they're talking about. But the point is, very simply, you have to be cool about that. Substack is a free speech platform. If people are using that to get their message out and they're using Twitter to help boost those articles, come on. That's also,
it's good for you. It's synergy.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. Ultimately, it's all engagement.
Look, you're very fucking lucky that these libs, as we predicted, are too intrinsically lazy and narcissistic to leave the platform.
Right.
We said that from jump when they were all like, we're going to Macedon. What did we say? No, they're not. No, they're not. They have all their followers on Twitter. They are not. It would require a sacrifice, and that is something these people will never do. Make a sacrifice.
Right.
They are very into telling you what their principles are, as long as it doesn't cost them anything. As soon as something costs them something, they don't have those principles anymore. So, motherfucker, you kept all of the libs. You kept them all in Twitter. You kept them all locked in there.
Right.
Why are you doing this, man? Like, what are you, stupid? But you have to remember, this is a guy who's so emotionally immature that he called the Thai diver trying to rescue children from a cave a pedo because he basically said his submarine idea was stupid. And it was.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a fucking James Bond movie where we're going to bring in your fucking stupid submarine, idiot.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. 3, Matt Taibbi is not and has never been an employee of Substack. That ought to be fairly obvious. He writes at Substack and gets paid directly by his readers. That writers making money seems to be such a strange concept is telling. Yes, I agree with that. This is very frustrating. It's one thing to mess with Substack, but quite another to treat writers this way. That's the other thing that's so stupid about this and self-sabotaging about this is Elon has a lot of enemies. But he had a lot of very high profile and very respected and serious people on his side, or at least, if not on his side ideologically, at least willing to set aside their differences with him to say, hey, I respect what you did and why you did it, and I think you're coming at this from a sincere place. Why would you turn around and, as you just said, why would you torch them over something so petty and so unlikely to affect your bottom line in any serious way? I mean, it's just ridiculous. If you allow tweets from the Atlantic magazine, how is that different in nature from boosting Substack articles? Like,
and
why?
Right at a moment when Matt Taibbi is taking maximum heat, you do this?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right when he's going on MSNBC for the first time in 6 fucking years to defend you and what you're doing. You go and do this like that day? Again, just an amoral person. That's what I said. Some of these guys, man, they have no conscience. They have no ability to empathize with other people. It does not cross their mind what effect this has on a person or a group of people or an entire community of people. I mean, there was a certain synergy there between Twitter and Substack, right? We started feeling more comfortable. I do feel much more comfortable now that Elon has taken that over. There are certain videos that we feel much more comfortable about posting on Twitter than we do on YouTube, because YouTube is still fucking, it's still East Berlin, as I call it.
Right.
Twitter, there's a freer atmosphere there. There's freer discourse there. There's freer discourse on Substack. So why not? Why not partner with them, or at least not fuck with them?
Right.
Why not just be cool? I mean, for Christ's sake, how hard is that?
This is what I'm saying. The only thing that Twitter is good for is this political engagement. And the libs didn't leave. So you still have that. You are still the go-to place for political engagement. So don't fuck with it. That's all that you have left, that you could maybe dig yourself out of this hole that you got yourself in by very impulsively offering to buy this company for a ridiculous amount of money that you knew was not a profitable company, and then having to go through with it. He realized after he opened his mouth that he made a mistake, but they were going to sue him if he tried to get out of it.
Right.
Because that was a firm offer.
Right.
And at that point, the board was going to take him to court if he tried to back out. So then he had to do it. It was another pedo moment. Yes, I'll buy this for $44 billion. It was a ridiculous price point to buy an unprofitable company that nobody had ever been able to figure out how to monetize. So, okay, you still got all of the people in there. In fact, from what I understand, and I don't think this has changed, Twitter has done better because you had a lot of people like us who really didn't use it, who went and started using it after he took it over, and the libs really didn't go anywhere.
Right. I mean, it was more a coincidence that we started using it just as he happened to take it over, because we happened to get a little more popular just as he took it over. But still, as I said, what I said a few minutes earlier, I meant, which is that I feel more comfortable posting certain things on there that we wouldn't feel comfortable saying on here or even on Facebook, which is a more censorious place, right? So you had that good thing going, and now you're just really cutting off your legs here because, like, look, if you're going to throttle the Substack posts, if you're going to be hostile to Substack, there's no doubt, and, we are a relatively small operation here, but I feel much less incentivized to grow an audience on that platform now. I'm not talking about Substack. I'm talking about Elon's platform. Like, the point of growing a
what is
Twitter
the Queen
following
of Hearts gonna
is
do
to
tomorrow?
be able to pump out the Substack articles and the Substack posts, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. I don't go on there just because I like to troll people and argue with people. That's why Russell goes on, but that's not generally why I go on.
And I hardly go on.
Right.
I hardly go on.
Yeah.
I was just on for the last couple of days because we had that video go kind of semi-viral.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, no, just a really, really horrible move and just horrible timing. And really, I mean, just once again, just shows what an amoral sociopath this guy is. That you could see Taibi is a little rattled from the events of the week. The whole MSNBC thing did not go well for him. I didn't think he got owned in the way that a lot of the libs say he did, but he clearly brought a knife to a gunfight there, and so it didn't go great for him. And so he's clearly a little rattled. You had to do this now.
He's not enough of a dick.
It's insane. No, he's not. He's not an asshole. He's not enough of an asshole. Yeah, the only way to handle that Mehdi Hassan interview was to go in like Jimmy Dore would have gone in, which is slam back a few cocktails, and as soon as you see that red light, you start screaming until they throw you off the air. That's it. That's the only way to handle that.
Which that would have been a legendary. That would have been like Brando turning down the Oscars. It just would have been one of those legendary moments in television history.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't like Twitter anyway. I don't like social media in general. I never really wanted to be on it. I realized that I had to. I've never used it for much beyond promoting projects. And yeah, I mean, the thing I will say for Facebook, unlike Twitter I really don't like. Yeah, you know what? In the past, you didn't know what those people you went to high school with are doing now. Now you do. It's kind of nice,
Right.
That part of it is cool. But overall, yeah, I think it's very deleterious to people's mental health. And you really have to limit the amount of engagement you have with it. And Twitter, there's really nothing there other than to get mad at people and own people. It's just, it's very toxic.
Right. No, I mean, look,
that's not post Elon. I never liked Twitter
for
that reason. That's what it is. Somebody once described it best as an emotional toilet bowl.
Yeah. No, I've heard it talked about that way as well. All right, let's take a few super chats and then go on to our next segment of the evening here. Folks, let's do a like check. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We have a big audience in here right now. Thank you guys all for spending the tail end of your Easter Sunday with us. We appreciate you being here. So please like this stream and please subscribe to this channel here. All right, let's go to some super chats here. Laugh. Trump turned the EPA from useless to terrorists. Well, actually, I will contest that. That was more George Bush, actually. One of the unremembered scandals of the Bush era was, and this was pre 9/11, so everything, like that whole 9 months between when he was sworn in and when that happened, obviously nobody remembers as much or talks about it much. The Bush White House, not their department of this or that, the White House itself doctored the EPA reports, their own EPA reports, and took the phrase climate change out of them. They actually censored their own EPA reports. So the corruption of that institution far predates Trump, which is a point that we tried to make.
Are you saying Donald Trump's not
Right,
responsible for everything wrong with the country? The country was just fine until the day he was sworn in.
Just fine. Black Freud, thank you for the $9.99, and thank you, Laugh, for the £2. If the psychological underpinning of liberalism is I'm better than you because of my values, then it's a short leap to authoritarianism when feeling inconvenienced, frustrated, or pissed off. Yes, I think that's an excellent point.
I think one of our segments tonight is going to delve into that territory.
Yes, indeed. I mean, just about all of our segments delve into that territory every show. But yeah, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, look, the idea, and yes, especially in this next one, the idea that once you take as a given that not only are you right, but that you are right because you are good, and that the other side is wrong, not just because they're wrong, but because they are evil.
They're evil.
Then,
Yes.
of course,
Yes.
it's a very, very short leap to totalitarianism. Thank you, Black Freud. Very much great comment. Red Z, did you see my plan? Red Z, again with the cryptic super chat. Are you referring to, Red Z, did you recently post a message to us in Patreon? You may be. If you did, I will
We keep saying colonizing Mars is a waste of resources.
Yeah.
We have a perfectly habitable planet right here.
I don't know if you sent us a Patreon message. If you sent us a Patreon message or an email and we have not gotten back to you, it is because Russell and I are both extremely busy this week, heading in through next week. But once next week is over, we will be back to some semblance of stability. I'm moving in 1 week. Actually, 1 week from today is my final move day. But I'm moving all throughout next weekend. And Russell's spring break tours are still going on. So it is extremely busy for us right now. So if we did not read an email or read a Patreon message or a Facebook message or a DM yet, it's not because we don't love you or value you. It's because we are
man.
burning the
Nick-
candle at
Nick-
both ends every day now. But we will get to it. We promise.
Nick, our music man, I have to get back to. We're planning on writing some parody songs. I'm like 4 days ago, he sent me an email.
Yeah.
So
no,
Nick, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm not a dick. I'm just really busy, man.
Yeah, no, it's been really brutal for both Russell and myself this week, which actually works out because I feel like if only one of us was busy, the other would resent whoever's busy for not pulling their weight with the project enough. We'd be like, come on, man, I know you're busy, but you got to pull it together, right? Got to take the time. The fact that we're both busy means we both kind of are using the same excuse that the other one is to be a little behind on things. And so it happens.
I'd
When it
say
rains, it pours, right?
overall, we're holding up pretty well, man.
Overall, we're holding up pretty well. We pulled it together tonight better than I thought. I was a little nervous about this evening just because today was so insanely busy. But so far, so good. And thank you guys all for being here. Please like the stream and subscribe to the channel. Bobby Kennedy from Robin Gibson spoke a lot like Bernie. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Thank you for the $2. We appreciate it. Cool Blue, thanks for the $1.99. Haven't seen you here in a little while, Cool Blue, but thanks for being here tonight. Perhaps it is really deep state going after Musk. No, this sounds to me
this is
like him.
self-inflicted.
This sounds to me like him being him. This is very, very consistent with the way he's always acted, which is why we've always said we don't like him. That's something that a lot of people don't give us any credit for because in this world, driven by social
A
media,
or it's B.
right? It's all team sports. It's either you're defending him and you're simping for him, or you're owning him, right? And we took a little bit more of a nuanced view than that, not because we liked him, but because, as we said, if one oligarch has to run Twitter, we'd rather it be him than Jack Dorsey, right? That's all we ever said. That's as much praise as we've ever heaped on him, right? Thanks for the other $2, Robin.
Even when we had Taibi on, he quoted what I said in the previous episode we had done about Musk and Taibi. They were all assholes. He said that on our show about Musk before all this blew up.
Right. Maybe that was it. Who knows?
Maybe that's why. Yeah.
Not enough cereal. Thanks for the $10. We should crowdfund a bunch of domains for Taibi and redirect them all to his Substack and then use one at a time to watch Twitter, have to block each one by one. I mean, the thing about Taibi is thankfully he's in a spot where, like, yeah, he now has, because of those Twitter files reports that he did, he now has a much bigger following than he had before. Like, I think he was at like 700,000 followers before they came out. And then the next day he was at 1.2 million and now he's at 1.9. So he has a lot of followers on there now. He's huge on that platform. But he doesn't need it. Like, you know, I'm sure he has enough to make a very, very healthy living just through Substack. So if he doesn't promote his shit anywhere now, he probably has enough action on Substack to the point where he could do what he loves for a living and be happy. And so God bless him for that. He doesn't need this the way like we would. Like, we need social media because we're not at that level. And so there's no way for us to grow to get close to that level unless we use it. Thankfully, he's not in a position where he's in a desperate spot. He seems like a man of integrity and character and loyalty, which is why he's not ditching Substack, a platform that's been very good to him for this.
Well, and also, I want to point out,
at that point, once he's that big, once he disses you in public that hard and shows how disloyal he is to you, why would you leave the company that's been great to you for this? Like, why? It's so dumb to even think you would.
And Substack has been great and consistent about defending free speech.
Right, it's actual free speech.
Whether it's popular, unpopular, whatever. It's look, I came up in a world where in the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing, this is almost impossible for people to imagine today. In the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing, you know what the left response was? You know what the indie bookstores in New York started to carry? The Anarchist Cookbook.
Right.
To make the statement that even in the face of this, free speech is inviolable, right down to having the Anarchist Cookbook at Shakespeare and Company.
Right.
That would never be the reaction today. If Shakespeare and Company, in the wake of something like that, put that on their shelves, the libs would be the ones screaming at them. It would be it wouldn't even be the conservatives. It would be the libs. How dare you? You're sick. What are you trying to cause violence? You're endangering lives.
Right.
Cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. That is actually a very strong point, and that's 100% true. But the other point that you made earlier, which is a good one, which is Substack has actually proven to be a real free speech platform, not the Elon Musk version of free speech, where one day Garland Nixon's banned, the next day he's back. Now Scott Ritter is banned. That it's just chaos. It's just
whatever. That's why I keep calling him the Queen of Hearts. It's whatever he feels like doing that morning. Off with their heads.
Right.
No, put them back on.
Right, exactly, yeah. So why, if you're Matt Taibbi, would you leave Substack for Twitter? I mean, it makes no sense.
Well, and I also just want to point out for all the people who accused Matt Taibbi of being a lapdog to the world's richest man, he turned around and told him to go fuck himself pretty quick, didn't he?
Right, exactly. Right, exactly.
That's pretty funny for a simp.
Right, for a simp or a lapdog or a PR agent, right, whatever. Right. All right. We'll take a couple more of these, and then we got some more stuff to do. Robin Gibson, thanks for the other $2. Appreciate it. Abiding71 with a super sticker. Thank you very much. And Axel Brandon from Louisiana. Thank you, Brandon. Got to take care of y'all. Cells die on company time. Indeed. All right. So, Russell, why don't you set up this next segment here? Talk a little bit about Riley Gaines. Who is she, and what are we about to watch?
Okay. So I'm gonna rather than to save this for the end of this segment, I'm gonna say this now. Whenever we've discussed this subject, a lot of people.
Just in case anybody doesn't know who she is, introduce what the subject is, because some people are going into this totally blind.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that hadn't occurred to me. Yeah. All right, so
I thought Riley Gaines. I thought Trump paid her hush money. That sounds like the names that Trump would pay hush money to. I didn't even know who the hell this was until a few days ago.
Okay, so Riley Gaines was a competitive college swimmer who swam against Leah Thomas. Now she wound up tying him for 5th in a swim competition.
Well, tying her. Let's leave. Yeah, We'll go 15. Let's see if we can make it 15 seconds before the
before they come through. Okay, so she was like, I'm talking about Riley Gaines now. She was really horrified that they just put somebody with male body parts into the women's locker room without telling them. There was no warning. They were not told that this was going to happen. All of a sudden, there's this, over 6 foot person with a penis walking around in the locker room. This was somebody, we're going to save this and I'll explain why. We'll get into this more on Thursday.
Yes, but for a very good reason, which we'll announce at the end of this. Yeah,
we will announce why. this was somebody who had been ranked 462nd as a male swimmer, who went on to win the women's swimming championship. So according to Riley Gaines, and I'm sure this is true, the majority of the women athletes that she has spoken to are horrified by this turn of events, but they're also afraid to speak out because of the social climate. Gaines spoke out about it, saying this is not fair to women athletes. It's a violation of Title IX. We're supposed to have equal opportunities. We're losing scholarships because of this. Clearly, there is a difference between men and women. It is not fair to expect women to have to compete against trans women in this way, because if you did go through male puberty, you are going to have physical differences. So she, she was going to go live a very conventional life. She was engaged. She was going to go to dental school, and she gained so much notoriety. I get the sense unwelcome, but it was one of those things. Once she opened her mouth, that's it. She's kind of committed herself to life as an activist. So she got viciously attacked and essentially held hostage this week in a speech that she gave. Now, first, I want to look at a speech that she gave at University of Pittsburgh last week, because I think this is part of what set off this attack on her, because she made an anthropologist who challenged her look like a fool, and the entire room cracked up. And she did that by going at a core premise that no reasonable person could buy. And they can't afford to have this conversation openly because they're not standing on solid ground. So let's take a look at that one first.
At which they are. The advantages that Michael Phelps has.
Hang on.
Which makes.
Hang on. Okay, so to explain this, because I didn't want to show the whole question. All right, so the anthropologist said, well, Michael Phelps has certain physical advantages, so should Michael Phelps not be allowed to swim? So this is her response to that.
At the level at which they are. The advantages that Michael Phelps has, I believe he has Marfan syndrome, which makes he's more elastic in his joints. He has typically longer limbs. His fingers are longer. His feet are bigger. All of those things, that would create nowhere near a 10 to 12% performance gap between him and his competitors. Nowhere near that same percentage. And so that's kind of to answer that question. To compare man and woman to Michael Phelps to the next best competitor is not equivalent by any means. Your next question, I kind of forget, but I actually have a question for you. You being an anthropologist, which anthropology is the study of human civilization, human biological and social. So if you were to dig up a human, two humans, in 100 years from now, both man and woman, could you tell the difference? Strictly off of bones?
No, because there's a wide range
She says no.
This is what got her attack.
Women have...
I'm not sure why I'm being laughed at if I'm the expert in the room. Have any of you been to archaeological sites? Have any of you studied biological anthropology? I'm just saying. I've got over 150 years of data. I'm just curious as to why I'm being laughed at when
I believe it or not, I have put a lot of research into this because I'm not comparing myself to you. I'm not comparing myself to you. I'm just telling you that I have considered all viewpoints.
Okay, all right. So look at a few things there. One, you have got, now he says he's a biological anthropologist, but he's not actually a scientist. He's studied the theory of biological anthropology. So he's not actually somebody who works in a lab. But his assertion that you can't tell that from bones is literally religion. That's not science to assert something like that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, that's the first thing you know is there's bone differences.
Of course.
I mean, it's the first thing. I mean,
so for him to
kidding?
assert that, now we're talking about a religion. And what does he do to this? Is part of why our elites, why academia is losing credibility, because what does he do to try to defend his position? Does he give you a scientific reason why you can't tell men from women from bones in spite of all available evidence? No, he says, I have a PhD. I'm an expert. Why? I don't know why I'm being laughed at. I'm the expert. I have the data. Okay. And then you got a couple of idiots on the other side of the room when he says, I have a PhD, who, just like the Bill Maher audience with David Throne.
Right.
They clap for him having a PhD. Now, I wanted to take a look at this for one thing, because this tells you who Riley Gaines is and what she's doing. I also believe, because she doesn't get the kind of visibility that some other people who speak out in this area get. So she doesn't get a lot of focus from trans activists. But that clip went viral and got a lot of coverage. And that gets to the heart of this. That gets to the heart of this, that you're not talking about social activism at this point. You're talking about Scientology. You're talking about religion. You're talking about something that is no longer grounded in reality, that people are being forced to either go along with or be silent. And when I hear people say, well, but look at all of these scientists who agree. Okay, to me, you sound like somebody in the middle of the Inquisition saying, but everyone agrees that Catholic theology is superior. Well, what happens if you say it isn't?
Right.
What happened to her?
Well, especially in an academic setting, especially where she was, especially in that forum.
Right. Look, these people, they're worried for their careers. They live on grants, and you can't get a grant to do proper research in this area in this country anymore. You can in other countries. And again, we'll get into a lot of this on Thursday, because I will reveal it now. We have very often had people say, when we get into these topics, why don't you invite trans people on the show? And I'm going to be very honest with you right now. We've had an entire conversation about this. And frankly, if this show were just mine, I don't have any kids. I live in Harlem on the 5th floor in a neighborhood where everyone's known me for 16 years. Try to come for me here, motherfuckers. Try it. Keaton has kids. He has a wife. He's not in this situation. And a lot of these people are dangerous. There are certain people that we will not invite on because of what they will bring with them.
Yeah, and look, I'm not even. I mean, I appreciate your concern for me, but I'm not afraid.
I would never forgive myself if something happened to you because your partner is a nut.
Well, too late for that, my friend. Too late for that. But no, but look, honestly, that's not. Maybe that's a concern of Russ's. That is not a concern that I share. I just, in principle, like, I'm not going to have a debate with someone who's going to call me a murderer because I ask a question about what they think. Like, I'm not interested in that. That's not a debate. I'm not interested in doing that. We are, however, inviting a very high-profile trans advocate onto the show on Thursday. He has already accepted our invitation. His name is Buck Angel. He was actually a very notable trans porn star back in the day. And now he is an educator. He has his own YouTube show. You can look him up, Buck Angel. He represents what Russell claims is a very substantial, like I said, I don't know this issue as much as he does, a very substantial portion of the trans community who is at odds with the more militant factions of the trans activist movement, precisely because they feel like what they're doing is actually setting trans rights back, not moving it forward. And so Buck is one of those people. I've watched some of his content over the last few days. Seems like a wonderful guy. We've had a great email exchange so far. He actually just emailed me back 3 minutes ago, actually, confirming for Thursday. And so we are very, very excited to have him on. and it'll be a great talk. You know, we've had conversations about covering this topic in the past, and I have told Russell, I said, I think we should hold up. Russell has wanted to do a deep dive into these issues for a long time, and every time I've stalled him, and I've stalled him because I think that if you're going to tackle it for real, we should do it for real. And that includes bringing a trans person on to talk about these things, which is what we are doing on Thursday. We're very, very excited for that show. That's going to be at 8 o'clock. That's going to be the whole program. It's going to be a real deep dive, a little bit of a different episode. No, headlines or comedy sketches. That'll be the whole show. And we're really looking forward to that. And we hope everybody can tune in. All right.
And this is what I most want to communicate. And this is part of why I want to talk to this guest. I think a lot of people who might, and we have some people like, I don't want to call you out, but I don't think you mind. We're all family here. God bless you, Gene. We've had disagreements on this issue in the past, and you've stayed on the show. I really respect that kind of open-mindedness to stay here. We probably agree on more than we disagree about, but I know you've disagreed with some things that I've said. But I think a lot of people think that the choices in this subject are between A and between B. Now, it is very clear, I think, to the people who watch our show that in politics, when you're manipulated into believing that, there's probably a lot of information that's being kept from you and you're being funneled into supporting one side or another side, right? So I'm suggesting use the open mind that led you away from the two-party system to think maybe A and B are both wrong. Maybe there's a C here. And maybe as a left movement, we should be giving refuge to all of the trans people who are being attacked by people who are largely not even trans in this movement for speaking out and having a difference of opinion that they do not feel confident enough in their point of view to debate. They only want to attack and shut it down the way that a fanatical religious group would. And we as a left movement, my sympathies align with the people who are being silenced from that community, not the people who are pretending to represent it. All right, that is my point. It's not an anti-trans position to support trans people who are being attacked by a fanatical movement.
Right, and that's what Buck has said. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so anyway, now that we got that out of the way, let's keep going here. So now we'll see the aftermath of a recent event at the University of San Francisco State, right? And so here is the aftermath of that, where this ambush happens. We're going to see this from two angles. One is from Riley Gaines' own phone, which she posted to her own social media, and then we will cut to a different angle where we can see her herself.
Yeah, you fucking transphobic bitch. I fucking see you. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
Does this seem like a social justice movement to you? Or does it seem like a fanatical club?
Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
All right, so this is from her phone. And you can see that very, very clearly here with the angle switch that I will show you. So there's the cameras pointed at her, and then here's those same cameras pointed at her from this side. All right, now when it comes to this stuff here where Russell was talking about try to use the same state of mind that led you out of duopoly politics, that'll leave you out of seeing things in such a binary way.
That's it.
I would just like to posit this, okay? Just a little callback to earlier in the show, right? The reason a lot of you guys in the chat who are now calling us things for no reason whatsoever, which you can never back up and never will, you never will be able to back them up. So it's no real bother to me. These college kids are doing this. They're being encouraged to do this because the establishment does not want them to do this. Right?
Yes.
The kids doing that in the hallway are never going to do this.
That's the big picture.
And that's the big picture. Okay?
Yes.
So just so we get that out of the way.
They
you guys think you're being very original. I assure you, you're not.
They're encouraging a culture war to avoid a class war.
Exactly. All right, so here they are. We get the picture here. All right. Now, while she was in the room, here we have them talking about making her pay to come out and breaking her pride here.
What we're hoping to do is to keep things peaceful. And
Make her lose her pride.
And move.
Make her lose her pride.
Tell her to pay us.
Tell
Tell her to pay us, and then she could go. $10 each.
Make her pay us. That's kidnapping.
I got paid for this shit, so we could get paid for it too.
On a public campus that we attend.
So what's the end goal here? We're cooperating, so what's next?
So they need to do their job and get her out here. We created a path. It's here.
All right, cool. All right. So Riley explained what happened on her own social media the following day. Do we want to play that? That's about 2 minutes. Should we play that? May as well, right, Russell?
Let's take a look.
All right, let's take a look.
And from both directions of the hallway. And so because there was no clear exit out of this hallway, we were kind of forced into a side room, another classroom, office room, where we essentially had to lock ourselves in for 3 hours. 3 hours of which there was chanting and screaming and yelling, vulgar and violent things, just really awful things that both myself and the officers. And we sat there for 3 hours, barricaded in the room. And even after the 3 hours, when we finally got to leave, these protesters were still stood right there, screaming the entire time.
What were they screaming at you, Riley?
They were screaming, of course, trans women are women. They were screaming that there will be vengeance and that this is a fight and that I'm using my white privilege and all of these. There were threats, there were intimidation, there was. They kept saying, "Open the door, let us at Riley. We want to fight her. Just let us talk to her. Open the door." And so it was kind of a weird feeling because I wasn't necessarily scared.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So is this really a movement that we, as a left movement, want to attach ourselves to? Do we want to connect ourselves to that? Because I promise you, the backlash is coming. And when it comes, it is going to be very severe. And people who advocated for this they're going to be spending a lot of time deleting their old posts and their old tweets. And if we connect ourselves as a left movement to that, we're going to get caught up in it.
Take the mic 1 second. I got to let my cat out of here. He's being an asshole.
We have got to make it clear that we do support trans people, that we do support trans rights, but we are not these people and not this way. And we understand that there are unique issues regarding biological realities that need to be addressed, that these things need to be discussed. What do we do about athletics? It is not fair to have trans men or trans women competing in women's sports. It's not fair, but it's also not fair for them not to be able to compete in athletics. So let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what we do about that. It is not fair, and it's actually against international law, to force women in prison to be housed with biological men. At the same time, there are unique dangers for trans people in prison. What do we do about that? Let's have a conversation. But trying to deal with this by denying reality and pretending that there is literally no difference between men and women, that is not going to work. In the end, that approach, as many trans people who are being shut down for their opinion try to argue, that approach is creating such a backlash against trans people that it's actually hurting the rights that they've gained over decades.
Yeah, and that's what Buck said on a recent debate that I just watched, because we've been prepping for this interview on Thursday. He said something to the effect, this is not an exact quote, but I will find it so I can ask him about this. He says, when you challenge reality in such a full frontal way, the world hits back at you.
Yes.
And that actually hurts the cause of trans rights. He's someone who's been a trans person now for 30 years, over 30 years, right? So this is a person with experience, right? This is not someone who can be so easily dismissed, as some people in the chat I noticed have tried already. And I said, tune in Thursday. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. I don't have anything to say. People make accusations. All you can do is make an accusation. I've never had anybody explain any of these accusations towards either myself nor Russell because there is no explanation.
Yeah,
Why?
somebody back there said they should have
they should have hit her harder.
They should have hit her harder. Like,
now, who's the fascist?
You're
here?
a sick fuck.
Right.
You're a sick fuck. You don't even belong. What are you doing here? What are you doing?
Who's the fascist in this situation? Is what I would like to know. I would like to know who is the fascist in this situation. They should have hit her harder. Exactly. I mean, what kind of a sicko do you have to be
for expressing an opinion,
right?
For engaging in a conversation and a debate? If you are so confident that your viewpoint can withstand scrutiny, debate. That's how we do things. The reason this movement has become so fanatical is, for one thing, and this is something we really need to delve into and figure out. It is absurd on the face of it that at this moment in history, our society is so consumed by such a fringe issue. That's not an accident. We really need to ask who's pushing this and why. Who is behind this and why? Look, right? We're
the
fighting
kids in
each other
college who
over
are virtue
something
signaling about trans rights, which is all it is a virtue signal. The reason they're at college is because they want money. That's why you go to college. You go to college because you want to make money. That's why they're there. They're not there to be great people or virtuous people. Issues like this give them an issue to virtue signal about, and therefore assuage their guilt that they are in those halls in the first place to become the beneficiaries of a fundamentally unjust system. That's why they're there. They're not there because they're great people. They're there because they want to get paid. They're there for the same reason anyone does anything in this fucking country, to get paid. And you don't get paid for doing shit like this.
Yep.
Right? You get paid for doing
that
shit
could
like
cost
this.
you something.
That's the difference. Okay? So anyway, we'll talk more about this on Thursday. But in the meantime, it's just completely uncivil. It's just uncivilized. It's anti-democratic. It's anti-human to corner a person in a room and hold her ransom for 3 hours because she said something about sports, about participation in sports. This is not, sports is not an existential issue. There are existential issues. My cousin is a trans person, and she has a fear of airplanes. She won't get in an airplane and fly. And so when she would drive with her mother from LA to New York, I would ask her, I would say, I didn't ask her in a dickish way, but I said, you're a trans person. You would rather drive through Nebraska than get on an airplane? Seems like driving through Nebraska would be a lot more dangerous, right, for a trans person than getting on an airplane. And she says, yeah, no, it's true. And one of the things that she has to worry about is what public bathroom she uses. This is an issue where, I'm not an absolutist on the bathroom issue. It's perhaps a complicated issue because I think a trans woman who causes a good old boy to do a double take and is liable to freak out and hurt them, should they have protection? Should they have spaces for their own? Yeah, I think they should. So, once again, we're not coming at this. And I don't even feel a need to say this again and again and again because it ought to be obvious. We're not coming at this from an anti-trans point of view. But it is important, I feel like, when we talk about when we do a deeper dive on this issue, I felt it was really important to find one of these trans people that Russell keeps talking about, people who are silenced because they buck the narrative of a contingent of trans activists, right? I think it is important to have that talk, not because we want to hurt trans people, for the exact opposite reason.
And I think a very important point that needs to be made that a lot of people who are not really thinking through this issue are not considering. Reality is going to win in the end. You are not, as he says, you when you assault reality like that, you create such a backlash, it hurts their rights. You know who you're empowering by handling it that way? By giving what he said as soon as I emailed him, he said, I'm glad to be invited on a left platform. I only get invited on right platforms. You're empowering Matt Walsh. You're empowering Ben Shapiro. Because if the only people talking about this are them, you're going to get their perspective on it. And they actually don't believe that trans people have a right to exist. They really don't believe that they have a right to exist. Right. So you are driving all dissenters to have to go to them for lack of any place else to go.
Right, and they don't go to them because they agree. I mean, I don't want to speak for Buck, obviously, but Buck did a debate with Charlie Kirk on these issues, right? So he's not with Charlie Kirk on these issues, but he did say in his email back to us, yes, it's refreshing to be invited on a left show because no left outlets want to touch this in this way, right? They just want to parrot hysteria, which is what this is. This is hysteria. Now, the reason because, Russ and I have spent hours talking about how we're going to tackle this issue. And there are moments where I thought that we had to keep the focus narrow, because if we try to broaden out too quickly and we don't do a thorough job, we're not going to communicate what we need in a clear way, and that's going to backfire. And so I was very conscious of that. I'm also very conscious not to demagogue against trans people as people. Very, very conscious of that.
Right.
Most people in most communities, most people in all communities are just ordinary people trying to do their best, trying to get by, right? So so to me, I never want to come across as demagoguing against any of those groups. That's why Muslims had a hard time after 9/11. That's why a lot of immigrants felt very unsafe during the rise of Trump and all that, right? So you never want to do that. You want to have a conversation that actually leaves everyone feeling better, and that's what I hope that the conversation on Thursday will be. In a situation like this, though, this was a situation when this story broke. This is cut and dry. This is simple. This is easy. If you cannot look at this and agree that a college student does not deserve to be chased down a hall and held for ransom for 3 hours for saying it was unfair that she had to compete against a biological male in a swimming contest, if you think she deserves that as punishment, you're just a sick person. You're just a fascist. You're a thug at that point. And so that, in a situation like this, a segment like this, I have no hesitation about it whatsoever. This is easy. This is simple. This is simple. This shouldn't even be a discussion. And you got people saying, hey, she should have been beaten. I mean, it's just sick. Yeah.
Of course that's sick. And this is part of what I am going to want to discuss when we have Buck on. I've made an edit of incidents like this, and there have been many of them. We keep hearing about how trans people are being attacked, but if there were footage of trans people getting attacked like that, it would be everywhere. They'd plaster it everywhere, but you don't see that. What you do see is increasing literal physical violence of trans activists who are not necessarily trans themselves sometimes, but not always, not even most of the people in the crowd.
No, that's what Buck has said. He said most of these people are not trans, and when they opine on our community in such a hostile way, it hurts our community because, number one, we don't get to speak for ourselves, and number two, it's a lot easier to virtue signal about at-risk people than it is to actually be an at-risk person and actually know what's good for you and what's not. Right. It's the same reason why it's the same reason why white savior politics is always a sort of dubious proposition. Right.
Right.
Because why?
How do you
want
know
a bunch of PMC white lib morons advocating as if they know what's best for them?
And that's what this movement largely is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because they've hijacked the microphone. And they are presenting themselves as representing a community that they do not, in fact, represent. Certainly not in its entirety. Let's put it this way. Do you know any community that is of one mind? Blacks, Latinos? I mean, Joe Biden's opinions notwithstanding. Do you know Asians? Is there any community with one set of opinions? So why would you believe that the trans community has one opinion? And it's only the opinion that these lunatics are telling you trans people have. Because if you saw that and you saw rational, reasonable people that you want to side with, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Did you hear that one? Trans women are women! That is not a social justice movement. That is mass hysteria. That is psychosis. That is cult behavior.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think we were pretty much wrapped on that. It's going to be I'm really looking forward to Thursday. It'll be a really, really great talk. I'm really, really glad we were able to put that together.
It is going to be an honor to host him, and I'm very glad that he agreed. I'm really looking forward to that interview.
I had a feeling you would, for the exact reason that he said, which is that I'm sure he doesn't get invited on a left-wing show very often.
Well, this has been, I've said this since we
which
first
is really
started
a shame,
talking
because then
about
he's
this.
forced to debate people who are actually against trans rights.
That's
right?
it. That's it. We, as a left movement, are picking the wrong side. A, B, those are wrong. There's a C. There's a C. And that C gives a refuge to people who want to speak out about this, who have been driven out of their own community by people who are not even members of it. That's who we should be supporting and helping.
All right. Let's take some super chats here, and let's go on to our third segment here about persecuted Democrats. We'll win some of the shit lib adjacent audience back. I just want to highlight this. Mika, it's never okay to assault someone because of an opinion. There, thanks. Easy enough.
Thank
Wasn't
you.
even a super chat, but I thought it was good enough
That's
to
not a
highlight
tough one.
anyway.
That's
not
like,
a tough
hey,
one.
that's like, hey, should George Bush be arrested for war crimes?
Right.
It's
Yeah, it's not a tough one. Here,
It's an easy one.
Courtney, easy one. Perfect. Regardless of your opinion, Riley Gaines does not justify physical violence in response to speech, of course. Courtney, thanks for the $5. Regardless of opinion, physical violence is never a reasonable response, nor should it ever be considered acceptable by anyone. Easy. Thank you. Jack, this was just a note. I thought it was funny. Pull your elbows off the table so you can leave your beard alone. You know, one thing I should do to leave my beard alone is shave my beard. When I shave my beard, I'm less likely to fidget with it. Yeah. So,
but
note taken.
Then we get all the grandpa comments.
Right. Then I look too much younger than Russell, and they call him grandpa.
That's it.
This protects Russell from the ageist attacks, is why I grow this beard. Although it is getting warmer,
you know what's funny? The other day when we shot the documentary, that was the most time we ever spent together in the same room.
Yes.
So it's interesting. You know, there's a lot of detail you don't pick up on somebody only seeing them this way. Like he has a little like gray patch there in his beard that you don't see.
I got a little bit of gray. I got a little gray on the sideburns too.
Yeah. He's got a little of that. And he also, you know, there's a strain of redheaded Jews, and he's got some of that going on.
Little bit.
More than you realize seeing him this way.
The beard is actually redder than my hair. People used to say I have a redder beard than on the top of my head. Yeah, no, that is true. It's funny. I noticed the exact same thing about you. It's like there are certain things you pick up on when you see someone in person that you don't. Like, for instance, looking at you, because I was on the camera and you were right to my side off camera for Jose's eyeline for the interview. And I'm looking, and I'm like, you know, I never get to see this guy in profile. I only ever see you head on.
Yeah.
So looking at you in profile, it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird seeing you in 3D because I only always see you on the screen.
Yeah. And Keaton, you know, you only see him from the shoulders up. He's a big, lanky motherfucker, man. How tall are you?
I'm only like 6'1". I thought I was going to be a little taller.
You give the impression of being taller, maybe because you're kind of thin. You're like lanky. Lanky. He's like a lanky guy.
A lanky guy. Big, lanky guy. Keeper of Trackin'. Thank you for the $11. Just look at the reaction to the Hogwarts Legacy release. Yeah, you want to talk for a second about that?
Well, yeah. You know, I saw a great meme. I actually posted it to my wall of people going, "You right wingers, you're ridiculous getting triggered by a beer can." And the response was, "You were literally threatening people for playing a Wizard video game 2 months ago." Yeah, that was pretty ludicrous. And I think it's all of a piece. If you don't have confidence in your argument, then you can't tolerate humor, debate, and difference of opinion. You can't have it, just like a religion, right? You can't prove that Jesus rose from the dead to tie it all together with Easter. So at certain points in history, they have gone and murdered people who refused to go along with it, saying, "Yeah, I don't think that happened. It doesn't really make a lot of sense." All right, well, burn the witch, right? You torture these people. It's the same thing. Like you're basically putting forward a proposition of transubstantiation. I say that I am a woman, therefore I am. Literally, not philosophy. Now you want to have a conversation what is the essence of a thing, right? Okay, that's very ancient, classical Greek culture kind of a debate to have. Is that what makes you a woman, right? Is the essence what you see yourself as, or is it the form? That's a very interesting philosophical debate. But when you start bringing it into law and culture, that's a different matter. Now you have to get into what the actual science of it is. And they don't want to do that because what they're saying makes no sense on that level, and they know it. That's why I wanted to show that first clip, because I'm almost positive that's why they went after her that hard. They can't be laughed at. They can't afford to be laughed at. Because once you start, just like the Soviet Union, right? That's what all the people who escaped from the Soviet Union said. Like, you couldn't make a joke, right? Everybody was tense all the time. Because if you can't support what you're doing rationally, you can't afford humor. Humor is too revealing.
Right. Okay. Christian Drake, thank you for the $5, my friend. You know, what would help literally all trans people forever?
Yes.
Medicare for all. Yes.
Yep.
People should focus their energy on more than a single person. Indeed. Black Freud, thanks for the $4.99. If everyone was treated with respect, nobody would need special treatment. It's actually the economy stupid. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at before.
Right.
Thank you. Are you going to take super chats during the interview? Buck was an MTV music video 30 years ago called Cursed Female. Great song. We will ask him. He's a YouTuber himself, so he knows how it all works. So I will ask him if we could take questions.
It's up to him. This is what I'm going to say. I actually thought about this. Obviously, it's up to him. We'll ask him in advance if he's willing to do that. Any question that is insulting or demeaning, I don't care if you give us $5,000. We'll just pass that on to Buck, and we're not going to ask him the question. But if it's a reasonable question, even if it's a disagreement, I'm not saying you can't have a disagreement, but you know what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. I mean, no, you can have a disagreement.
If it's out of line, I don't care how much super chat money you put on it.
Right.
We're going to take your money,
exactly.
and we're not going to ask the question.
Exactly. And I think we've established a track record of good faith here. We haven't kicked any of our dissenters out, even the ones who said what I think are some pretty terrible things. We haven't kicked you out. So we won't kick you out. But yeah, no, we're not going to sandbag them like that. Steven, thanks for the $10. Okay, want to make sure I didn't miss it. And long story short, thank you for the $5. Thanks for having the courage to discuss this issue in a good faith manner on this hill. You may get hell for this. Best wishes. I mean, look,
it won't be the first time.
Yeah, we've gotten hell before. Should be all right. Should be all right. Look, you just have to have the confidence to know where you're coming from. And I think both Russell and I do. I think Buck does. And, look, how many actual right-wing fascists that you guys know and hate so much, how many of them have we interviewed? 0, right? So, what do you think? Come on. That's the point. That's the point, Russ. Because this is being painted as a binary choice between people who subscribe to every single tenet of a certain agenda and people who feel that trans people should not have rights, and that is not the choice. It's being presented that way for very specific reasons, but that's not the choice. The choice there is a third side of that, which I think we've pretty much made a point about. Meteor Dreams, you're one of them who've made some pretty hostile comments in here, but this one is not. Sad to see that the left is more and more anti-trans. Well, no, we are not. No, we are not. Just watch Thursday. I mean, that's all I have to say. It's the same thing, there were a couple of you guys. There was a guy on Twitter who watches the show. You may be here in the chat this evening. I don't know. Because you watch the show and you say you like the show, but would over and over again say, but your trans takes are dog shit. They're dog shit. And he would never tell me why. He would never say why they're dog. He would say, here. He recommended a couple channels. I said, I will check them out.
That's what they keep doing. Yeah.
Well, no,
like we haven't heard the party line.
I told him, I did check it out because he said that we had a certain misconception of what was out there. And so he said, here, watch this channel. And so I'm watching it thinking maybe I'll be surprised. And no, it was exactly what I knew I was going to hear, which is J.K. Rowling is Hitler. They can never say why. They can never point to anything she said.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they do the opposite. They say it's not that what she says is bad. It's the intention behind it. It's the subtext, right? The covert.
Yeah.
The covert.
Lock me in a logic jail, as we used to say.
Bigotry. Right. Exactly. So I just don't know exactly what the critique is there, but all I can say is, watch Thursday. That's the only answer I have to that.
Watch Thursday. Consider the idea that you might have been funneled into the same kind of binary that you tried to get away from politically. And also consider the idea that we're doing a mass science experiment on a bunch of kids who are going to grow up. And when those kids grow up and start talking, a lot of you who are speaking very boldly about this right now are going to be going back to delete your old social media posts because it's not going to be pretty.
Right. All right, cool. Well, there you have it. Buck Angel, Thursday. Tune in, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be the whole show. There's not going to be anything else. We're going to give him the whole time as long as he wants, and we're looking forward to it. All righty. Excellent. Let's do our third story of the evening. Here we go. Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, two young Democrats, were expelled by the Tennessee House of Representatives this week. I will just read from the BBC here reporting on this. This just gives what I thought was the most succinct sort of summation of this. Democratic Representatives Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson joined demonstrators gathered at the Tennessee State House on March 30th to demand stricter gun control laws. The three entered the House chamber during the protest and led chants from the lectern, disrupting proceedings. The protest came just days after 6 people, including 3 children, were killed in a school shooting at Covenant School in Nashville. During the protest, Mr. Jones held a sign that said, "Protect kids, not guns," and also led protest chants shouting "No action, no peace" into a megaphone. Dubbed the Tennessee Three, the 3 Democrats represent about 200 constituents in Tennessee.
200,000.
I'm sorry, 200,000, yes.
That's a very small town.
Yes, small town in Tennessee. Mr. Jones and Mr. Johnson were stripped of their committee assignments by the Republican leadership after the disruption. Mr. Pearson did not serve on a committee. Republicans, who hold a supermajority in the state, then filed a resolution to expel the 3 Democrats from their seats in the state legislature for, quote, disorderly behavior. The resolution said the 3 brought disorder and dishonor to the House of Representatives through their individual and collective actions. In the run-up to the vote on Thursday, members of both parties traded barbs as they debated proposed legislation. Last slide here. Mr. Jones, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Pearson, Miss Johnson and Mr. Pearson entered the chamber together, holding hands, their fists raised just outside. Protests, including young students and their parents, crowded the halls of the State House where they had gathered for days calling for stricter gun laws. "We protect the Tennessee Three," they shouted, referring to the Democrats Justin, and Gloria. And by the end of that day, when they knew this vote was coming, obviously, Mr. Jones and Mr. Pearson, both black and known by many as the Justins, had been expelled by the House Republicans. Miss Johnson, who is white, avoided expulsion by a single vote. All right. So, high-profile Democrats were quick to respond here. Joe Biden hosted the ousted lawmakers on a virtual call. He's going to invite them to Washington in the coming days. Kamala Harris went down to D.C. to give a speech about this, a very impassioned speech. Here she is giving her take.
It wasn't about the 3 of these leaders. It was about who they were representing. It's about whose voices they were channeling. Understand that. And is that not what a democracy allows? A democracy says you don't silence the people. You do not stifle the people. You don't turn off their microphones when they are speaking about the importance of
And by the people, we mean Democrats who are towing a party line Democrat position.
Very
against
specific types
Republicans.
of Democrats.
Right, exactly. Specific types of Democrats who parrot talking points about an issue that is ultimately no threat to entrenched power. How dare you take the microphone from them? This is America. If you're on Twitter posting about something that we think today might be wrong, different story. I mean, just incredible how this provokes a response. All of a sudden, they're free speech warriors. Here, let's hear from Barack Obama, a guy who presided over the hostile crackdown on Occupy Wall Street in the middle of the night once they were causing too much inconvenience for Mike Bloomberg's downtown area, and who, of course, prosecuted more whistleblowers than any other president in history. This nation was built on peaceful protests. Well, not exactly.
Not to mention Standing Rock.
And Standing Rock, yeah. And like this nation was built on peaceful protests. Well, not exactly. But anyway, different conversation. No elected official should lose their job simply for raising their voice.
The Native Americans were peacefully protesting, and then they killed them.
Yeah. No elected official should lose their job simply for raising their voice. I like how he says no elected official should raise their job simply for raising their voice. I mean, maybe not in this way, but ironically, like, if it's appropriate for anyone to lose their job based on what they say, it will be an elected official who's put there by the people who are supposed to judge what they say and what they don't say. Like, you should have said, you could say no one should lose their job for raising their voice. Like, an employee of a company shouldn't lose their job for raising their voice. But of course they do. They do.
Right.
Because private companies censor. But according to Barack Obama and according to Kamala Harris, censorship can only happen if the government does it. But no elected official should lose their job for raising their voice, especially when they're doing it on behalf of our children, especially when they are raising their voice and agreeing with Barack Obama, right? Now, look, obviously, I am sympathetic to the points that these guys were making, and obviously they should not have been expelled. But, you know, look, I have to tell you, first of all, the hypocrisy from these Democrat loyalists and Democrat higher-ups is just self-evident. I gave you two examples right there. Russell added a third. Occupy Wall Street, Standing Rock, all of his policies
he also
going after journalists.
Well, yeah, he cracked down on more whistleblowers than any president in history.
Yeah.
And, you know, very often that's consistent, that you'll look at the records of Republicans and the records of Democrats are often worse in these areas that we take it as a given that the Democrats would be better in. Look, we just had, I haven't gotten to look at the details of it, but it's making a lot of headlines. We had so much news to cover. I didn't get a chance to really look at it, but, this happened under Obama, and now it happened under Biden, that there are leaks about how we're spying, not just on our enemies, but on our allies. This is under Democrats. George Bush, who we thought of as an existential threat to the press, didn't prosecute nearly as many whistleblowers and journalists, not even a drop in the bucket to Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama, I don't want to swear to that. Maybe you know better. Didn't he go after as many whistleblowers as like previous presidents combined?
I believe so. Yeah.
Right.
I believe so.
I'm right about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. Greenwald talked about that through the Obama years all the time, about how this is just an unprecedented criminalization of journalism as a profession.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they're going to go out there and talk about freedom of speech. I mean, this kind of relates to our previous segment. They love them some culture war. What if these guys had, let's do a thought experiment. What if these guys had been expelled from the House for protesting for Medicare for all? Would they have gone down there? Would you even hear about it? Would it even be in the media?
Well, look, I was going to make this point myself, but one of our chat members beat us to it. John Small, East Palestine still waiting. Yeah, exactly.
You see them there?
They are petulantly deciding not to go to East Palestine, Ohio, because Trump beat them there. And they figure if they go there, it's going to look political. And so they're just refusing to go. That's what it is. It's basically just this.
Right.
Nope,
right.
we're not going
right.
because
right.
because they know they're going to look bad when they go. So they're saying we're not going to go. A couple of Democrats in good standing get ousted. Next day, they're there.
Yeah.
You know, pick it up. There's a free speech. This is not America. You know, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's all like what they do.
It's insane.
It's all just a performance of politics, just completely lacking the meaning point and essence of it. This is all just it's a performance. You're not getting gun control in Tennessee. So what are you even doing? Like listen, so this is something, the first time I heard this was from Matt Walsh, this idea from conservatives that, well, what we really need to do is have schools better guarded. Now in Tennessee, they have introduced a bill like that. And I saw,
well, doesn't Matt Walsh live in Tennessee? He lives in Tennessee.
He lives
right?
in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He lives there. And Daily Wire is based there, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Shapiro lives there too. I think the whole operation is down there. So the Democrats who got expelled voted against this bill to make it easier to provide private public security to private schools. They had voted against it. So he was, trying to justify this that way, but okay, whatever. That aside, in a place like Tennessee, that's probably the best you're going to do. Like, that's sad, but you might as well vote for that because you're not getting them to limit guns. That's not going to happen.
It's funny. I'm thinking, does Shapiro live in Tennessee? I thought Shapiro lived in L.A.
I know Daily Wire is based in Tennessee.
It's just funny to imagine Shapiro in Nashville, This guy really puts the honky in honky tonk there, I imagine him showing up at the bars there. You ever been to Nashville? Nashville's a great town. You ever been to Nashville? I've been to Nashville a couple times. It's really, really good, really fun town. But yeah, tough to imagine Ben Shapiro.
And I'm an Elvis fan.
Having a great time there,
of course.
Well, Memphis, yeah.
I went to Graceland.
Yeah. No, I did too. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off with that thought. But yeah, no, I mean, the idea that you're going to pass gun control there, of course, it's a non-starter. And look, the other thing that I found interesting about this, because I've thought about this myself, because we've talked about the possibility, and now because of the Roe v. Wade stuff, it's less of a possibility now than it was a year or 2 years ago. But we talked a lot about on this show how it's really not difficult to envision this country being just a one-party state moving forward, because the organic bases of support for Democrats are dwindling because of betrayal after betrayal, to the point where it's not hard to imagine a Republican supermajority. And I thought, what happens if they get those supermajorities? Can they not just expel the Democrats and turn this into an actual one-party state? Right, and you look at a lot of states in the country where they have the opportunity to do that. I'm surprised this hasn't happened more. Tennessee, I forget how long it's been. Pardon me. It's been quite a long time since they've done this. This is a very, very rare thing. But I remember Trump, I think it was during the impeachment hearings or something like that, he referred to Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats as not 50-50 partners. They're not 50-50 partners, which is New York talk.
This Republican brought that up. Yeah.
Right, which is like New York talk for like, we're not in this together. We're not good faith negotiators. We are oppositional forces. And given that attitude has been so prevalent, it's really been the norm since Trump, and even a little bit before Trump, but Trump was when it really ratcheted up on both sides, by the way. I'm surprised this hasn't happened more. I'm surprised, like, where a state has the opportunity to just purge the other party, red or blue, I'm surprised they haven't just taken it. I really am.
Well, one thing this Republican was saying that was bullshit, really. He was basically saying the Democrats started it. That depends on how far down the chain you go.
Right.
Completely vilifying the other party as evil and unpatriotic, I would argue that came in with the Gingrich Republican Revolution in 94. Like, that is when they really threw out, setting aside whether what they were doing in a bipartisan way was good before.
Right.
This whole, Tip O'Neill, Reagan collegiality that Chris Matthews used to love to wax poetic about, that went out with Gingrich. It was the Republicans who drew first blood in terms of just tearing apart that old idea that they had to work together.
Right.
So now, subsequently, Democrats have made their own contribution to that. But who started it? Yeah. It was the Republicans.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly was. But now, I think, at this point, now that this conflict is, 25 years in, I mean, I think you could certainly say there is plenty of hatred to go around and to go back and forth. And given that climate, I'm surprised.
It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just,
Exactly.
you know.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And given that, I'm just surprised that this has not happened earlier. Like, what's to stop Mississippi from just purging the Democrats? You know,
sure.
That's it. Like, we have a supermajority. We have the power to do this. We don't want any of you here. So that's it. You know, maybe they figure they don't have to because they have a supermajority anyway. What's the difference if there are a handful of Democrats that they can kick around? Why bother? Right, exactly. But this seemed to be, I mean, look, it's
like
pretty...
what fun would it be not having any libs around to own?
Yeah, right, exactly. When we gonna start owning each other, that's not really fun. Yeah. Exactly. Look, it's hard to imagine that race was not a part of this, right? The two black guys got booted, and the white woman was able to stick around.
Now, I can't.
They were younger, they were louder, they were a thorn in their side, right? They just wanted to get rid of them. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I give this Republican credibility is because he was against expelling them. He didn't think they should do it. I haven't actually seen the video of the protest that triggered this, but he claimed that the reason the white woman didn't get expelled is because she kind of just stood there and wasn't screaming and she wasn't as raucous about it as they were. That's his claim. I'm not taking a position.
Well, no, look, I'm sure that they were more of a thorn in their side, right? They're younger, right? I mean, if I had to guess, I'd guess they're probably more progressive than she is. Not that I'm an expert in Tennessee state politics, but just demographically speaking, young people tend to, skew further left. These guys are both quite young. I think one was 28. I forget how old the other one was, but they're both far younger than I am even. And so, so I think that definitely motivated it, right? But it also motivated a backlash to it. The organic response from the people of Tennessee, that's all healthy and well and good and fine. I got nothing bad to say about that. When it comes to Kamala Harris going down there and jumping in front of a microphone, when a couple of Democrats in good standing who were never going to implement any of these policies anyway, that warrants a trip. When you have East Palestine, Ohio, gagging on the air in their own kitchen and nobody can go there, and now you're just refusing to go there because Trump went there first and you don't want to look like you're chasing him. I mean, come on, it's just horrible. And the Obama quote, I mean, every time, I mean, it's so nauseating to hear any of this shit from him.
Of course,
lecturing young people about getting involved to go and vote when 1 million of them volunteered for Bernie for a year and you just whacked them with one phone call. Now, yeah, well, you got to. I mean, it's just horrible.
Don't boo, vote.
Don't boo, vote. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really awful. So anyway, that's the show for tonight. I hope everybody had a good time. Bippin is a Patreon supporter. He's in the chat right now, and he sent us a few private chats.
We have a surprise for you at the end. So don't
we do. Stick around for the post-credit scene, as they say here.
We have a post-credit scene.
A post-credit scene.
Thanos. We have Thanos.
Right, yeah.
We have Kang.
Exactly. Bippin says Mitch McConnell's opposition to Obama had something to do with that. Yes, that definitely ratcheted it up. His promise to make Obama a one-term president before he took office, that was sort of unprecedented. And Republican opposition to him in general, they opposed the health care plan basically because it was Obama, even though it was Romney Care that passed. No, I think those are all fair points, Bippin. Thank you. Bippin is from India, watching from around the world.
Cool, man.
Yep. Actually lives in India.
I enjoyed your fair country.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what part of India you're from. No, you're not from India. Now Bippin says he's from Indiana. No, but you're from India, right? I'm from Pune, P-U-N-E, India. Okay, yeah, because I remember you saying you were from India. I don't know if you live there now, but yeah, I remember you saying you're from India. I remember because we talked to you once before when you called in on the phone, not just on the chat. Yeah.
I am not. Hang on, that's the wrong one. I am not doing a recital tonight. But I'll tell you what, I have a video of my performance of Tom Waits' Christmas card for a hooker in Minneapolis. So maybe when we get around Christmas time, I'll drop it. You know what I will promise right now I will drop some videos from my holiday show when we get around the holidays. It's called Naked Holidays. Obviously, the naked parts will not come up, but we had some pretty funny sketches that'll probably work on the channel.
All right. That'll be fun. All right, folks. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in here tonight. Look at this. We pulled this in under 3 hours. How's that?
Look, that's almost
refreshing.
like discipline.
Yeah, we actually get to sleep tonight.
I mean, it's an accident. We just didn't have content that ran that long. We would have gone 4 hours if it played out like that.
Yeah, and we didn't have callers for tonight either. They were too chicken to call in on these issues too.
They didn't want to fuck around with that. Well, Tusker's not in tonight. You know she would have been in on that.
That's true. That's true. Tusker's probably working. I didn't see her in the chat here, but it's also Easter. I'm surprised we had a big crowd, but people have been watching streams all day, man. Everybody did good numbers today. I know Sabby had a really full house in her stream earlier. She had like 800. Yeah, wow. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, she had a big crowd in there. And oh yeah, by the way, we just want to plug Revolutionary Blackout Network tomorrow. We will be on RBN at 3 p.m. It starts somewhere around there. They always start around 3 p.m. I'm assuming they'll let us know in the morning. I will probably be broadcasting from a different location, a more child-proof location, because during the afternoon, my kids are up and about, and they've been really hyper lately. It's not their fault. It's just that we're organizing a move, and so I just don't have enough time to like stimulate them the way I should with trips to the store and playing outside and stuff like that. I feel bad for them, but they're being good sports about it. So anyway, my mother-in-law will thankfully be watching them tomorrow, and I will probably be broadcasting to RBN from probably from my parents' place. Actually, maybe my dad will peek in and say hi if they'll allow it. I don't know. He's become a popular figure here in our chat, but maybe we'll see about that. Yes, Sabby did stream earlier. All righty, folks. So we are going to be on tomorrow, 3 p.m. on the Revolutionary Blackout Network, the Free Assange event this Tuesday, April 11th from 4 to 6 in Washington, D.C., outside the DOJ, and obviously the United for East Palestine Twitter and Facebook. Go over there on their social media. Check them out. They have an event coming up, a virtual event coming up on Saturday. Enjoy this little post-credit scene before we sign off. We will see you guys back here on Thursday for our interview with Buck Angel. Program note, we are off the following Sunday. No stream on Sunday. I will be moving that day, so there'll be no way to do a show Sunday. We will be live streaming, I guess, that Monday night after that at 8 p.m. All right, everybody, please enjoy this little credit scene on the way out. Thank you very much. Be safe. Be well.
Courage.
Lies all the time, so just Fox. Trump lies all the time, so just Fox.
I could have used a little more cowbell. I gotta have more cowbell, baby.
What if you criticize Candace Owens?
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Please clap.